Hi everyone, welcome to Bonnie Astrology. Today I'm going to be discussing the astrology of April 2026 and what it means for your zodiac sign. As always, if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you like it. Subscribe to the channel for regular astrology content from me. And if you want to follow me on any of my other astrological socials or visit my website, they're listed in the description box below. So let's look at the astrology of April 2026. Now, the first thing that stands out is the absolutely massive Aries influence that we are having in April. Now, we have longer term transits happening in the sign of Aries. Neptune and Saturn are both long-term transits. They met together in the sign of Aries on the 20th of February, which is, of course, the once in every 36-year conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. This time it's happened in the sign of Aries. That's not happened in roughly 200 years. So that monumental influence of that Saturn-Neptune conjunction is being triggered in April. And with so much happening in the sign of Aries, particularly because that Aries conjunction of Saturn and Neptune has kickstarted a brand new cycle for us all collectively, individually, this really is a month to embrace Aries energy. So this can put a huge focus on identity, on being brave, being pioneering, being an individual, following your own path, pursuing your own goals, being courageous, and reinventing yourself because Aries is all about identity. And on the 17th of the month, we have the new moon of April in the sign of Aries, and it's going to be conjunct Chiron very tightly. Chiron, as an asteroid, represents our wounding, the parts of ourselves that we feel insecure about in the sign of Aries, our wounds of self. And so this can be about embracing those wounds, choosing self-love and self-acceptance, or even using those wounds and insecurities in such a way that you build something powerful for yourself. Accepting you are who you are, working on what you want to change, but also accepting the parts of yourself that are not quite where you want them to be just yet, or you feel somewhat at odds with or even ashamed of. It can be about incorporating the wounds you have within yourself to initiate something new for yourself. So maybe your wounding or your pain is inspiring a personal new beginning. In fact, in a lot of cases, the most profound new beginnings we go through in life involve some sort of wounding or pain. You know, something painful happens, an ending that we experience, or we come face to face with the reality of who we are or where we are, and it hurts. This can oftentimes give birth to something new and something that is healing. And especially with that new moon, the dispositor will be Mars in Aries. Mars is very strong in Aries, and Mars actually enters Aries on the 9th of April. And so, with that new moon being ruled by Mars in the sign of its domicile, where it's very strong, we can feel this strong desire to initiate something new for ourselves. It really supercharges any motivation that we have to do something, to pursue something, to use our physical energy, oftentimes with Mars. In fact, 9 times out of 10, I would say 100% of the time, but I'm sure that there is an exception to the rule somewhere. Let me know if you are the exception to the rule. But nearly everyone, if not everyone that I can think of that I have met who has Mars in Aries natally, they're all sporty. You know, they are all very into the gym, into fitness, into running. They're the type of people that would be working a day job and then take an aerobics class at night, or the type of people who were in the military or in the police. Mars in Aries is very strong, so it tends to show up strongly in the chart of individuals. It can really be a very active Mars that feels comfortable taking action and initiating something new, sometimes too quickly. And that is something that can be tricky to navigate this month because Mars and Saturn are going to get into their conjunction on the 19th. Saturn is in fall in Aries, and Saturn is in fall in Aries because Saturn tempers Aries. Aries likes to move, to do things quickly, to get things done, to just simply start, to move forward. Unchecked, Mars in Aries, or Aries energy generally, and bear in mind this is about the sign, not the people. But this energy can sometimes be aggressive and it can be very quick to jump into conflict or start a fight or speed, or this can show up as road rage. And Saturn comes in and meets Mars as an authority figure, as the police that stop your car when you're speeding, as the arrest when you start a brawl in a bar. It's the authority, but it's also the consequence in other ways. It's not just authority figures like military or police. It can sometimes be the consequences of your hastiness and your actions. Speeding, driving recklessly, Saturn can be hitting the wall. It can be a very sobering moment for a lot of people when Mars connects with Saturn, and it can represent consequences. And it will be interesting to see how this manifests globally, as that is a point of frustration and tension where someone has maybe been, a country or a military operation or a conflict has been going forward exceptionally quickly with no rules or regard to the consequences of how this will affect other people. This can be a tempering moment and a moment of consequence. Mars meeting Saturn is really very challenging. They're the two malefics of the zodiac. So when they get together, you can bet that it will probably be very frustrating. It will probably have big consequences, but it can also be about friction leading to restructuring. So something that maybe a conflict that leads to rebuilding with someone else in your own life. Maybe it is that you and someone else become very frustrated with each other and you think, okay, we're not getting anywhere. Let's figure out a route here. Let's figure out what we can do going forward. What are the boundaries? What can we do? What can't we do? Saturn can be about recognizing limitations. And Saturn likes to think long term, which is where Aries energy often falls short, especially Mars in Aries. Mars in Aries, well, Mars in energy is a way to put it, I suppose. Mars in Aries has a lot of energy and wants to get the thing done now. But Saturn says, what about the consequences long term? So be mindful that this month there will be this desire, especially when Mercury enters Aries. On the 14th, it's actually a number 5 month in numerology, and that corresponds to Mercury. So when Mercury enters Aries on the 14th and joins Mars there, we're going to see this desire to move things very quickly, these ideas that we want to put into action. It isn't all talk. There's action behind our intent, there's action behind our words, but it's very speedy. 5 in numerology is very speedy. It's fast paced. It talks fast. It walks fast. There will be a need to temper some of this energy. And what you rush into in April will absolutely have long-term and lasting consequences with Saturn. So just bear that in mind. Furthermore, Neptune connecting with Mars, there can be this sense of confusion early in the month about what one needs to do or what one wants to do. And sometimes it can also bring this awareness to our own lives of what are we actually fighting for here, or what is ideal in this situation? What is fantasy? Because Neptune is the long-term influence in Aries. It can bring a sense of delusion and rose-tinted glasses, but it can also bring a sense of understanding our own ideals and what we truly want. What would be the ideal situation? What is the dream? And Saturn says, well, if this is the dream, what are we going to do about it? What is the duty? So we have dreams and we have duties, and we're bringing them together in April, especially on a personal level of what it is that we want individually, but also what we want collectively with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, restructuring our ideals of what we want in this world, what we want going forward, especially when it comes to conflicts and when it comes to negotiations. The full moon in Libra at the beginning of the month puts the focus on connection and relationships and compromise and negotiations and possible reconciliations. That energy is highlighted too. So, what is ideal when it comes to balancing the needs of one person and the needs of another person? So, we have some significant news about Uranus this month. Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini. Uranus is leaving Taurus for the next 84 years and entering the sign of Gemini. Now, Uranus did touch into Gemini last year from about July to November. But Uranus, before it moves into Gemini, is going to be camped out at the anaretic degree, the crisis degree of Taurus. Uranus at 29 degrees is very wild and unchecked energy. It really brings a sense of shock and surprise. That tends to be what happens with Uranus. Because it's at the crisis degree, it can feel as though this is the final chance to shake something up, maybe in the Taurus part of your chart, or this is the final shakeup of the Taurus part of your chart. Something wild may happen, something unexpected, something unpredictable. But Uranus can bring breakthroughs, Uranus can bring genius, Uranus can bring innovation. And you might see this area get shaken up in quite a good way, especially because Venus is going to be in that sector for most of the month until roughly the day before Uranus changes signs. So Venus will be holding hands with Uranus as Uranus changes signs, which can bring a sense of positivity, connection, relationship support, and also a bit of abundance. But what we can see globally with this will be interesting because Taurus is about our natural resources, the Earth's resources. It's about the Earth, the material. It's also about the banking systems, money. And when it's at the final degree, this can be about great innovation. Things can get shaken up in a good way. There can be new ideas, there can be inventions come out. Uranus at the 29th degree can actually be a time of great invention, and we can see things being created, maybe in terms of the environment or in terms of the earth, that can be quite positive. But there can also be wild, unpredictable shakeups to the economy, to our resources, because it is triggering that solar eclipse from February. So we have a lot of activations for February and April. Those storylines that were going on then are being activated very much so as the inner planets trigger the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in February and Uranus triggers the eclipse. So there can, of course, be a roll-on effect. But back to the point about Uranus itself, at 29 degrees, it can bring great inventions. It can certainly shake up rebellions, shocks, revolutions, protests. It's actually also associated with really shocking deaths of famous people. And if you think back to the end of last year when Uranus was retrograding back over that degree, there was quite a lot of that. In fact, if you think to 2025 in general, Uranus transiting this degree, there were a lot of shocks associated with deaths of famous people, very shocking ones. So that can be something that we may see in April. But it can certainly shake up the status quo, and it can be very inventive when it comes to the material, but also very disruptive to our resources, especially as we know to oil because of that Neptune-Saturn conjunction. Neptune is about our oil, Saturn's about restriction. So there may be, especially with Uranus moving into Gemini, which is the sign of short distance travel, cars, trains, we might see people become more inventive with local transport because of oil shortages or issues with the material. And I think we talked about this last year. I've certainly mentioned before that I see Uranus and Gemini as focusing quite a bit on trains. Obviously, it's very inventive and innovative, and oftentimes Uranus and Aquarius is the energy of the future. So we don't always know exactly what that's going to be because it hasn't been invented yet, but it can certainly bring shakeups when it comes to short distance travel, innovation, but also disruptions as well. Uranus moving into Gemini is going to bring a new 6 to 7 year transit for all of us individually in our Gemini houses, which can really shake things up. And obviously, you'll notice this the most if you are a Gemini sun, moon, rising, or you have natal placements in Gemini, especially in the first 6 degrees. You're really going to feel it this year, the energy of Uranus. And that goes without saying that that applies to the mutable signs generally. You know, Sagittarius, you'll be feeling this by opposition, which can really be quite a shake-up, I will tell you. You will also notice this if you're 0 to 6 degrees of Virgo or Pisces with Uranus energy. But a lot of the time with Uranus, these shakes are actually what we need. Sometimes we need to be disrupted out of our comfort zone because it's become stale and stagnant and we're actually not happy at all. Uranus can come around and shake that up. But globally, yes, changes to transport, media, communication, the schooling system, education generally, social media. And with Uranus, these changes can move quite quickly. In fact, April generally is a month that will go by very quickly with so much activity happening here in the first quadrant. No retrogrades, no planets in retrograde. In fact, Mercury actually clears its post retrograde shadow on the 10th, around the time Mars moves into Aries and really kickstarts this va-va-voom energy of let's go, let's go, let's go. So be careful of burnout this month for sure. Doing too much can certainly be appealing for people when Mars is going through Aries. You might find there's people around you pushing to get things done yesterday, but it can indeed be too much too quickly, and that energy can burn up pretty fast. In fact, Mars connecting with Saturn, you might notice more people around you or even you facing injuries this month. Where if you haven't ran in 30 years, you suddenly think, I'm going to try a 10K tomorrow. And then you injure yourself. Try to temper any physical exertion that you have. It's great to put your all into something, but just be mindful of long-term consequences as well and pushing beyond your limits. So as always, I'm going to pull a tarot card for the month of April. And a very happy birthday to all those born in April this month, whether you are an Aries sun or a Taurus sun. Very happy birthday to you. I'll be more so discussing Taurus season in the May horoscope because we will have more Taurus energy coming through at that point. But we also do have Venus in Taurus this month, which is in domicile. So Mars and Venus will both be domicile from the 9th to the 25th. They'll both be in their home signs, which is really positive for relationships, believe it or not, and connecting with other people. Knight of Swords, fast-paced, fast-moving. Again, it is that do first, think later energy. The Knight of Swords is very quick to take action, very quick to make things happen. Also is quick to lose interest sometimes in what you're doing. So as I said before, bear in mind that there is an element of caution attached to this with Saturn being in Aries. Saturn is in fall in Aries because Saturn likes to play the long game. And Aries is more about being in the moment. But you can use both those energies effectively to create something long-term and sustainable, but keep it interesting, keep it fresh, and put the effort into it for long-term sustainable results and success. It's delayed gratification a lot of the time with Saturn in Aries. Especially if you're going through your Saturn return in Aries, this month is very fascinating for you. It will be a big learning curve. But the Knight of Swords is about embracing that initiative, doing the daring thing. Again, I'm not encouraging you to do anything reckless because, as I said, Saturn can bring long-term consequences. But this energy is about taking initiative and making things happen where you can and where you feel that it is part of your path. That is what I have for April. Timestamps are listed below for your zodiac sign. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi Aries, welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. Aries, you are well and truly the star of the show this month. I mean, just look at all the planets that are in your sign. A lot of focus on the self this month. To put it simply, your focus in April, Aries, is you. Your ruling planet Mars is moving out of Pisces on the 9th, so it's coming out of your very sleepy 12th house. And you may find that your energy is increasing. So Mars going through the first house, especially when it is in your sign, when it is domicile, can really give you an energy boost. You can feel very driven. You want to take action. You want to make it happen. You want it done yesterday. It's impatient. It's brave. It's courageous. It is angry sometimes with Mars going through Aries. But you feel as though you have all this energy. And April is going to be a time where you choose how to channel it, what you're channeling it into, what you're putting your energy into. Now we have these longer term influences in your first house. Neptune is in your first house since February. You haven't experienced a Neptune transit of the first in this lifetime. Aries, it's a big deal. Saturn is there for about 2.5 to 3 years. That is also a big deal. That comes around once every 28 to 29 years. You have outer planet activity in your sector of self, and that means that where you're at in your personal journey is a point of self-discovery and self-reinvention. For sure, this month puts a big focus on your identity, your body, your appearance, your style. This is how you are presenting your identity. It's about how you look, but it's also about how you feel. It's about what you want to do, what you want to commit to, the work that you want to do. And Saturn, especially, Saturn for you, Aries, rules your career. So this reinvention and this rebranding can also be connected to your career or your goals or your public image. But this is a huge point of reinvention. Mars and Neptune are getting together on the 13th, and you might have this idealized vision of yourself, this goal that you want to achieve, whether that is an aesthetic thing, whether it is a health thing. You have this vision of yourself that feels within reach. It may be something new, maybe a new way of being. You might feel more psychic. You might feel more spiritual. You might feel more curious about intangible things. Some of you could be seeing healers for health matters, or you might even be looking at your style in a very different way. You know, maybe you're embracing something a bit more floaty, a bit more spiritual, a bit more unusual. With Neptunian energy, you're wanting more of a glow. You might just change how you look in a way that is energetic, even. It might not necessarily be that you're doing anything different, but you might be meditating more. You might be yeah, you have this idealized vision of yourself, Aries, that you're aspiring to. And you're leaning into that energy in April. And Mercury being in your sign, Mercury's going to enter your sign on the 14th. You might be thinking about yourself more and talking about yourself more. And that's okay because you really are the main character here, Aries, this month. So you might have yourself more on your mind. And you could, especially with Mercury and Neptune, when they connect, you could be finding that you feel very psychic and tapped into other realms. You might have these very dreamy ideas. Mars connecting with Saturn is a little bit tougher in the sense that you can experience some insecurity, but you can absolutely use your insecurities of self, you know, the things that maybe you feel insecure about yourself, whether that's how you look or how you act or who you are. You can really channel them into a really wonderful new beginning, Aries. It's not about letting them rule you, but it's embracing those parts of yourself that are not so easy for you to love with love and stepping into this new version of yourself. It's not stepping into a new version of yourself because you hate yourself. It's stepping into a new version of yourself because you want the best for you and you see this vision that you have for yourself, mind, body, and soul. That new moon in your sign on the 17th is conjunct Chiron. It's about this new chapter in your life. You've new goals. A lot of the time when there's a new moon in your first house, especially if it's close to the ascendant. So if you have your ascendant at 26, 27, 28 degrees of Aries, it can be an image change. With Saturn being in your sign, you might be changing your teeth. You might be committing to physical fitness. Some of you might be having an actual procedure of some kind done in April, whether that is aesthetic or whether that is health related. I'm not giving you advice on whether to do that or not. This might be a time where you are really looking to refine your personal goals, who you want to be, and what you want to do about it. Yes, with Mars and Saturn connecting, there can be some self-doubts. There can be burnout if you don't temper the energy. Saturn wants you to be working hard, but it also wants something sustainable that you can sustain in the long run. It's not about getting everything done in one day. You know, Saturn is the planet associated with the mountains. And You are the ram. So mountains, nothing to you, but you may need to slow down a little bit. It's like if you've ever ran a race, if you start off way too quickly, you start to drop off and then you find it harder to actually get to the finish. Whereas if you pace yourself and you know what pace is best for you at the time, it's a lot easier to reach your goal. I feel like for you, Aries, this is a month where your disciplined effort will pay off in the long run, but you don't need to see all the results in April. Just remember that. You can really build this very solid foundation for yourself and your own personal journey. So, yes, we have the vision of you that you're aspiring to. You might feel more spiritual, more intuitive, but we also have the work effort and ethic to get towards these goals. But certainly, I could see a lot of you experimenting with your look, trying something new, focusing on your image, focusing on yourself, your goals, your personal wants, needs, and desires. Aries, you could absolutely be unstoppable with this energy if you use it wisely. Now, on the other hand, on April 1st or the 2nd, depending on where you are in the world, we will have a full moon in your seventh house of relationships. And this can bring a peak manifestation or experience when it comes to partnership. So maybe for some of you, you're going official with someone, maybe you're meeting someone, maybe you're elevating a relationship to a new level. Maybe there are relationship changes going on, or maybe there just is a temporary focus on somebody else in the midst of all of this. You might be changing what you want from a relationship, or you might find that as you change, it naturally changes what you want, and who you're attracted to might change depending on the work that you're doing on yourself. Or it could be, you're going through this personal journey, it could lead you to meet somebody along the way. And you may also find that perhaps a relationship in your life would like a little bit more of your attention because so much of it may well be going on you. So this woman is definitely highlighting relationships and relationship changes or bringing feelings within a certain relationship to the surface, Aries. And I also want to mention your second house because Uranus is going to be leaving that sector for good in your lifetime, depending on your age. Uranus has an 84-year transit. So for most of us, this will be goodbye to Uranus and Taurus for good. But either way, Uranus is going to be shaking up that sector because Uranus from the 5th of April to the 25th of April, it's going to be at the anaretic degree. And the anaretic degree of any sign, any planet, tends to be a now or never moment. So Uranus is about liberation. The second house is about material stuff. You might decide that you want to get rid of some stuff, and there could be things that you have that are just energetically weighing you down. If you've ever held on to items or belongings of an ex or an old friend that you're no longer in contact with, or just things that do remind you of a certain time in your life that was unhappy, this is the time to say goodbye. Let it go. Release yourself from something material that you just need to be done with. So it might be that you're going through a declutter, a spring clean, you're getting rid of some stuff. It can also be, though, that there are unexpected developments and changes with your finances. Now, for the most part, Aries, it's probably a good thing, depending on how it's interacting with your chart. The reason I say it's probably a good thing for a lot of you is because Venus, the lesser benefic, is domicile in Taurus in your second house, which is lovely. We have your ruler Mars domicile and we have Venus domicile. Venus going through the second tends to bless your finances, tends to be a time where you can attract more money, more financial abundance. You also attract more gifts from other people, more luxury, but it can also be a time where you are finding more things that you want to spend your money on. But nevertheless, there can be an unexpected event when it comes to your money. So, an unexpected bill, an unexpected purchase that you need to make, or it can be a now or never moment when it comes to an idea, something innovative when it comes to making money. Uranus going through the second house can often be a time where people do actually start to make money from something they didn't know was possible if they're feeling that innovative spirit. So there could be an idea, there could be some new opportunity when it comes to making money, or a now or never moment to put that into practice, Aries. Now, Uranus then moves into your third house, as does Venus on the 25th. Venus is going to be, not Venus, Uranus is going to be in Gemini until 2032. So this is a longer term transit as well. You might not necessarily notice the grand effects of it in April, but Uranus as a transit brings liberation, sudden change, disruption, breakthroughs. It's a time to break through anything that's stagnant and embrace something more unconventional. In the third house, that can show up in your neighbors, your siblings. It can show up in your cousins, your aunts, your uncles. It can also show up in terms of the information you take in, what you're learning, what you're studying. It can also be about your car, your commute, and it can be how you think as well. These things can all be over the next 6 or 7 years shaken up, Aries, and you might not necessarily notice it completely in April, but it can be a time where you start to see subtle manifestations of it. Maybe your sibling starts to get very interested in something that is very out of character for them, or you notice that you have neighbors move in that are a little bit peculiar. And these things can be great. They can be positive changes with Uranus. They're not all disruptive for the sake of being disruptive. But it can be an area of life for you, Aries, that will just be a little bit more exciting on one hand, but also a little bit more unpredictable on the other over the next few years. So that is what I have for you, Aries. This is a huge month to reinvent yourself. It'll go fast. Just be mindful that if you want to move at a faster pace, which I'm sure that you will, just be mindful that you could come into some limitations or blocks now and again with Saturn. And the quicker that you go up against an obstacle, the more it can hurt. So just temper yourself. Think long-term strategy. Put your effort into it for sure. Put your hard work into it for sure. But think long-term. This is a marathon, not a sprint with Saturn. That is what I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful month and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Gemini. Welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. So, Gemini, as you can see, we have a lot of activity happening up here in your 11th house of friends, of groups, of your hopes and aspirations and wishes, and your social networks. So, this could actually be an incredibly social month for a lot of Gemini risings, because we do have so much activity happening here in the 11th house of groups. So, Mars connecting with Neptune, that's happening on the 13th of the month. This might be a time when you get involved in something that is humanitarian or something that is charitable. You might be wanting to put your energy into a cause, Gemini, or you could be spending time maybe making friends with people who are quite Neptunian. So think spiritual, think intuitive, think mystical, lower vibration of that, people who are delusional, or people who are escapists or are struggling with addiction. Although some of you might volunteer your time to help people that are in those sort of situations with Mars and Neptune connecting here, just be mindful to choose your friends carefully this month, because there will be long-term implications of the people that you do connect with, the teams that you join, the groups that you find yourself in. You might have more responsibilities within a group or a team, or even within your friendship circle. You might be the parent friend this month, Gemini, because Saturn can bring responsibilities. So you could have to, as I say, be the parent in a group dynamic, in organizing something with a team, maybe taking the lead on something with a team of people. And this could require a lot of hard work and effort. It can also test your friendships this month, Gemini. So people that are in your life, your friendship dynamics may be tested. You may see if someone has been pulling the wool over your eyes, or if someone is a long-term friendship connection or not. You might become more aware of your friendship dynamics this month. and the people that you are choosing to spend your time with. You could find that maybe some connections are tested to the point where you would release them or you would let them go. Or you might also notice that some people in your circle are incredibly loyal and very much there for you this month. But it feels like you're also wanting to you could be very focused on the future, Gemini. So you might have this idealized version of what the future looks like with Neptune there. You might think, okay, I want it to be this way. But something about that also feels heavy because Saturn is there. So you might have this grand vision, this grand dream, but it will mean nothing if you don't ground it in reality. So a lot of Gemini risings, Geminis could be putting effort into creating a new vision of the future. Sometimes with Neptune going through the 11th, you realize that your vision of the future doesn't resonate anymore. And that can be very disturbing for some people that what they once wanted, they no longer want. Saturn can also test how committed you are to a certain vision of the future. So this month you might decide that you want to create a new vision for your future. Maybe it's a dream board, maybe it's what you want to manifest, or it's just committing to certain goals that will help you get to where you want to be. What is the dream for you, Gemini? And this new moon that's coming in the 17th, you'll really feel the effects of that, the 16th, 17th, 18th of the month. But don't limit yourself to days where this new moon can take effect because really April's energy is all about your Aries house for the most part. This new moon can bring in new friendships, new groups, new teams, and it can bring in new team members, new friends into your circle. These people could be healers or the friendship could be healing. Maybe for some of you, you have some wounds attached to friendships or groups or teams from the past. Maybe you find the idea of taking the lead of a group of people really intimidating and scary. This can be a month to address your limitations around that. Why do you feel that stepping into this leadership role is not something you can do? Or maybe you are looking at your vision of the future and saying, this is what I need to heal within myself to be happy in the future. Maybe there are certain wounds or limitations that are standing in your way of your vision, essentially, Gemini. But with so much happening in Aries, it really is putting a lot of focus onto social activity. With the sun going through that sector until the 19th, just generally, a lot of opportunity to meet new people, to mingle, to network. Your social calendar could become incredibly busy. Be careful of social burnout, Gemini, because there might be a lot of opportunities to mingle and socialize, and that could be something that you want to do. But with Mars hitting Saturn uh, on the 19th, you could definitely burn out when it comes to a social connection or social connections generally. Now we have a beautiful new moon happening in the sign of Libra, or full moon rather. It's a beautiful full moon happening on the 1st or the 2nd of April, depending on where you are. And this is highlighting your fifth house of love and romance, Gemini. So this is bringing your love life to the fore for a lot of you. You might be falling in love with someone. Your romantic relationship could be changing. With Venus being in the 12th, this could be something that has been secret being revealed in your love life, a secret attraction, a secret relationship. It could be realizing that you have feelings that were secret from you, maybe is one way that could manifest also. For some of you, it can be to do with children instead. So it could be pregnancy for some, it could be birth for others, or it could just be that your children are telling you something that you didn't know. They're sharing a secret, or they have been involved in something that they feel ready to share with you now, that they've been working on behind the scenes. I feel like it's positive though, with Venus being domicile in Taurus. So something could be coming up with your children, something could be coming up in your love life, Gemini. For some of you, this could also be a creative project or a hobby or something you've been very passionate about that you've been working on behind the scenes as well. Now, the biggest news for you probably this month, Gemini, is of course Uranus re-entering your sign. Uranus was in your sign briefly from July until November last year for the first time in 84 years. And this is going to be a 6 to 7 year transit. And I have to tell you, Uranus going through the first house is life-changing. But it can be very exciting. It can be disruptive. It can be shocking. It can be unpredictable, but it can be exceptionally exciting. It can be innovative. It can bring wonderful plot twists. It can break you free from something that has been stagnant for a while. Gemini, it can really shake up your life in a good way or a challenging way. But don't get too fixated on it being this disruptive influence that's going to derail you. It's not. But if an area of your life, Gemini, has become stagnant, you may surprise everybody by changing it. So Uranus going into your sign from the 24th or 25th, rather, is going to be part of a longer term transit for you. But because Venus is moving in there with, well, very close to Uranus, Venus enters Gemini, your first house in the 24th, Uranus in the 25th. You may feel like these changes are going to be good. Maybe for some of you, it's about your love life. Maybe for some of you, it's about your style, your aesthetic. You're suddenly feeling like you want to try something new, something a little bit unconventional. Maybe for some of you, that's getting a tattoo. Maybe for some of you, that is, and you might laugh at this, but I have seen it time and time again. For some reason, when Uranus goes through the first house, people want to dye their hair different colors. And I say that as somebody who did just that when Uranus was going through my first house. I was a teenager. I don't know how many hair colors I had in my hair at one point. I think it was about three, four, but I tried them all. In that period of time, I tried them all. So you might actually get very experimental with your style, Gemini, and allow yourself the freedom to experiment with your look. But I wouldn't suggest doing anything too permanent too quickly. I mean, well, that's tricky to say to someone with Uranus in the first house. I wouldn't do anything too permanent too quickly because you can change your mind, and part of freedom in the first house with Uranus is to be able to change it when you want. And there are certain things on a style perspective or a physical perspective that you can't easily undo. So allow yourself the freedom to change your mind. Don't do anything too drastic that will limit you. That's my only advice from a style perspective with Uranus going through the first house. Because I don't think I would recreate any of the hairstyles or outfits I was wearing or embracing when Uranus was going through my first house personally, but I was a teenager, so that's sort of part of the overall thing. I think with Uranus going through your first house, you're really going to feel this need to get out of a rut. Maybe in terms of what you do or how you behave, maybe you notice there are certain things you have always done and you think, actually, I would like to try something different. Actually, I have been in this Groundhog Day scenario for too long. I want to change things. So, yes, the unexpected plot twists, the need for freedom, the shocks, the surprises. Typically, Gemini with Uranus going through the first house, they come from you. This is where you surprise other people, you shock other people because you just feel like your own personal freedom to be yourself and do your own thing is incredibly intense. So allow yourself that space, allow yourself that breathing room. I will say Uranus, though, before Uranus goes into your sign, from about the 5th of April to the 25th, Uranus will be in the anaretic degree of Taurus. And this can bring a lot of unexpected energy that has been trying to express itself but hasn't got the chance to. In your 12th house, this can be really shocking and surprising dreams, really shocking and surprising psychic or spiritual experiences, unexpected endings of something. Gemini, unexpectedly needing to leave something behind, release something, let something go. You might be making big changes behind the scenes that people would not have anticipated, potentially. So there could be a lot of unexpected energy going on this month generally. Uranus at the 29th degree can sometimes be this now or never energy where you say, I need to change this now or I never will, or I need to break free of this thing or I never will. 12th house as well, if you have had an addiction or something with mental health or rumination, something that you couldn't quite get to grips with, sometimes Uranus just is like a light switch that goes off and you're finally over it. You're finally over that thing from the past. You finally see that issue differently. You finally feel ready to leave this thing behind or leave that thing behind, whatever the case may be, Gemini. You can find sometimes with Uranus going through the 12th house, you're suddenly liberated from something that has been weighing heavy. That is what I have for you, Gemini. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Cancer. Welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. Cancer, we have a lot of activity happening here in your 10th house this month, and I mean a lot. It is your main focus for April. Your career, your reputation, your goals, your public image, authority figures in your life, so bosses or also maybe your parents. These different themes can be coming up a lot in April, and this can be a completely new and fresh start for you, Cancer, when it comes to your career. So, Neptune is now in your career zone as of February, and this is a longer term transit. So, it can sometimes feel a little bit like it's running in the background, but April is amplifying that energy. It's triggering that energy, actually. It's triggering that Neptune Saturn conjunction from February. And Neptune now in your career sector, Cancer, you have an idealized vision forming. And if it's not formed yet, it may very well form in April of how you want to be perceived, what you want to be known for, what your career should look like, how you want to lead. You might feel a bit confused about how to get there around the 13th when Mars and Neptune are conjunct. You could be uncertain of your goals. You could be uncertain of your aspirations. You could feel a little bit like a boss or authority figure is projecting their stuff onto you, especially their irritation or their anger. But it can also be a time to really dream new visions into reality. And you could have some kind of vision that you really needed. You know, maybe you didn't know what it is that you wanted. And this month you say, oh, this is what I want. And maybe it comes from pondering how you want to feel about your goals or career or what you want to be known for or how you do want to be perceived if you care about that. And this could be also just for your own awareness, Cancer. Sometimes that combination can be to do with scandals, but you may or may not be in that position. This could be about a boss or it could be to do with you, maybe, Cancer, but it can sometimes bring a bit of a public scandal or a bit of a public, well, yeah, I'd say scandal. I'll stick with scandal. It could bring something up that maybe feels a little bit scandalous, but it can also be a time to dream a new vision into reality. Although, as I say, if you are trying to make a decision, the 13th could be really very confusing. Now, by contrast, Mars is connecting with Saturn on the 19th, right around the time of that new moon. And you may find this month that when it comes to your authority figures, be it parents, be it bosses, or just your career in general, your roles and your responsibilities, you might feel a lot of pressure this month. You might have a lot that you need to do. You might have a lot that you need to execute. You might have a lot on your plate. You could be feeling a lot of pressure. You could be feeling like there are certain limitations or blocks or delays or obstacles with Saturn. And you might have to develop then, with that new moon on the 17th, a long-term plan. What is it that you want in your career? Saturn sometimes, when it's connected to the 10th house, it can be incredibly frustrating at times. You can run into people that feel like karmic lessons. They're there to teach you something, and inevitably they do. They teach you something very important, something very profound about yourself, about your career, about your goals, about your work, about your public reputation. There will always be someone there to teach you something, whether it's in an easy way or not, usually with Saturn, not. But that can mean that sometimes getting that promotion doesn't come about as easily or as quickly, or it can be that getting that deal off the table is frustrated or delayed or takes a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of patience. But it can also be a time where you refine yourself and you become the leader that you admire. You become a version of yourself that you really respect. You gain respect from other people. You gain admiration from other people. And if you do have an early degree Aries midheaven, you could absolutely align yourself with your calling and your purpose. And career changes that you make in April, Cancer, have long-term consequences or ramifications. And that can be because you finally align with what you're meant to do. When Saturn was going over my midheaven, I started my astrology business. And it has been something that, I hope I never have to give up, but it has been a long-term part of who I am and what I'm known for. And that can be something that you align with this month. Saturn going over the midheaven can sometimes it can actually bring promotions. It can bring starting your own business. It can bring a new entrepreneurial goal towards you, or it can bring a new way of showing up professionally or being known for something else. But yes, it will limit you. It will test you. There will be parts of it that feel frustrating or require a lot of patience and a lot of effort from you, Cancer. But if you put the work in, you can absolutely achieve something remarkable and sustainable. That new moon can be a great time to set goals when it comes to your career. And also, if you have insecurities surrounding your job, your career, your profession, or your public image, this can be a period where you start to heal that. And sometimes healing it with Chiron and Aries is just about self-acceptance. You know, saying, I know I'm not the best uh public speaker, but I accept myself and I will put myself forward when I can and I will try my best. It's that kind of an energy. It's accepting your limitations, your perceived limitations sometimes, and embracing them as part of this new chapter. Or you want to be doing something that you feel means more. Maybe you want to be known for something meaningful rather than just what you have been doing if it doesn't feel that way, Cancer. So, yes, huge month for your career, your public image, and your goals and what you're known for. And the goals and the purpose doesn't have to be career related, but it can certainly be something that you're working on with Saturn there in the 10th house, Cancer. Now, by contrast, we have a full moon in your fourth house. It's happening on the 1st or 2nd of April. So, in the first week or so of April, there can be big things happening in your home surrounding your property, surrounding your living situation. This could be that maybe there are changes in your home, changes in your family, something is reaching its peak. You're gaining emotional awareness of a matter pertaining to home and family in the early part of the month. I do feel for a lot of you, you could be having friends over, you could be having friends visit you, stay with you. It could be quite busy in your home, or you could be changing your home in some way that you feel matches your vision of the future a little bit better, with Venus being in the 11th house, Cancer. Other big news is actually about your friendships, because Uranus is going to be at the final degree of Taurus in your friendship sector from the 5th of April to the 25th. And then Uranus is going to enter your 12th house. So, Uranus going through your 11th, there can be some unexpected changes when it comes to your friendships, when it comes to groups. That can be unexpected invitations. You can meet people you would never in a million years have dreamt you would meet at social events or social occasions or through your friends. There can be unexpected developments happening with your friends, or your vision of the future can change in an instant. It completely shift with Uranus going through the 11th house. But Uranus then moves into your 12th house, and this is part of a longer term transit. Uranus goes through a sign for about 6 to 7 years. Uranus already did a little bit of time in your 12th from July to November last year. So think back to that time period because we're covering some old ground here. Uranus going through the 12th house can be a very interesting time in a spiritual perspective. So, when we have Uranus going through the 12th house, we can have very unusual experiences spiritually. So, you can really find that you meet people who are very spiritual and very unusual in some way. Uranus wants to liberate us wherever it goes. And the 12th house, it's very much our subconscious. It's where we store old stuff. So when Uranus goes through that sector, sometimes it can disrupt us on a mental health perspective, emotionally, spiritually, but it can also liberate us. In fact, that's the whole point of the Uranus and the 12th house transit is to liberate us from old stuff, to liberate ourselves by letting go. And sometimes letting go of things that have been stagnant for too long. So if you've been holding on to the past, if you've been holding on to a pattern, if you've been holding on to a self-sabotaging behavior or belief, Uranus can come in and say, time to let it go. And it can be released in an instant. You can gain clarity in an instant, or you can go kicking and screaming the hard way with Uranus, where you resist changing anything and Uranus throws you all these curveballs. With Uranus, it's sometimes better to just embrace something unusual. So if someone says, oh, you're dealing with this issue, have you tried Reiki, for example? And you think, I'm not trying that nonsense. And eventually you get to a point where you think, okay, I'm going to have to do it because things are just progressively getting more and more disruptive. And you try it and you find it works for you. You know, it can be that type of thing. It's not about negating anything traditional entirely. I'm not saying that. I'm also not giving mental health or emotional health advice. But Uranus going through the 12th house can sometimes bring people that are a little bit unusual or unconventional, or practices that are a little bit unusual or conventional, and they work. So stay open to different ways of looking after your mental health or your emotional health as well, or your spiritual side, Cancer, because as I say, it can get very weird and very wacky with Uranus going through the 12th house. That is what I have for you. Hope you have a great month, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi Leo, welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. So Leo, you have a lot of activity happening in your ninth house. Now, this is to do with travel, it's to do with higher education, it's to do with philosophy, it's to do with your spiritual beliefs. And this means that in April, these things are really taking a central space in your mind, especially because Mercury is going to be going through this sector from the 14th. Mercury shows us what we're thinking about. And I think a lot of you are considering your travel plans. Now, there's no Mercury retrograde in April for sure, but there are some challenging energies coming in from Saturn. So, what I am seeing with April for you, Leo, is that when it comes to traveling, either now or in the future, it feels as though you may have this grand vision. You know, you might dream of a certain place and think, I really want to go there, or feel this soul calling to go there. You might see a picture of a place just maybe on Instagram or in a magazine, and you just feel this soul calling to this particular place in the world. That can be Neptune's energy. It can really draw you to a certain place, a certain culture, to have a certain experience. Some of you can be traveling to spiritual retreats or for spiritual matters. For sure, Leo, when Mars and Neptune meet on the 13th, you may have this vision of where you want to travel, or you might dream up some new travel plans, but there can be a little bit confusion, a little bit of confusion when it comes to travel matters. How are you going to get there? Is it going to happen? There can be a little bit confusion about the finer details of the whole thing. So just be mindful of that. If you're traveling around that time, you might be a little bit more confused about what you need to do. So if you need papers, if you need documentation, where you're going, which airport you're going to, that type of thing, watch for confusion with that Mars Neptune conjunction. You may also feel very inspired to study something, but just make sure that you are, I guess, in some cases, say, for example, you're studying a specific subject, say you're studying law. There'll be the old law and the new law. So just make sure that you're reading the right book, is what I'm trying to say. So that can be that you're trying to study something, but you might not necessarily have the right materials, or you might be confused about a matter with education, with that conjunction. If your intuition feels like something's a little bit off, trust that. Mars and Saturn meet up on the 19th, and this can sometimes bring an element of frustration when it comes to travel or when it comes to higher education. So this might be needing to commit to long-term study, needing to take your studies more seriously, needing to put in more effort to your education. It may also be that if you're waiting for exam results or you're waiting for even a visa or a passport, there can be some sort of delay or frustration with that Saturnian energy. But it feels like if you're committing to something long term, so if you're making a long term plan to travel or you're making a long term study plan for yourself, the commitment will really pay off in the long run, Leo. You might take your beliefs a lot more seriously as well. Some of you could, with Mars there, be arguing with people about your beliefs or about education. That can bring conflict with teachers, mentors, but it can also just heat things up when you're talking, especially with Mercury and Mars. Heat things up when you're talking about religion or philosophy or political matters or the world. The world as it is can definitely add a little bit of tension. You know, you and somebody else could butt heads when it comes to belief systems this month for sure, Leo. But I feel like some of you may be with that new moon in Aries on the 17th. So that can be about making travel plans. That can also be about signing up for university, signing up for college. If you are, or you're feeling called to study something, for a lot of you, Leo, I think Chiron could add an element of healing. So maybe some of you are going to university to become a doctor or a nurse or a physiotherapist or a chiropractor, or you're studying to be a therapist, whatever the case is. A lot of you could be wanting to begin a new chapter as a healer, to study to be a healer, or to heal through learning. Some of you could be taking workshops, courses that help you heal. You could be traveling somewhere for healing purposes. You know, sometimes you see people go to retreats to take time to themselves to heal, to work through some stuff, especially if they're burnt out. And a lot of people may well be in April with that amount of energy in Aries. Mars going through Aries makes us think we have all the energy in the world. You might feel like you could travel around the world in 30 days. And then you meet Saturn and you think, no, I don't think I can. That's not really feasible. You know, Saturn's about knowing your limitations. So, yes, a lot of activity happening for you, Leo, when it comes to travel. Now, to counter that, we have a full moon that's happening in the third house in Libra on the 1st or the 2nd of April. And it's highlighting your local environment, your neighbors, your siblings, where you live. It's highlighting your mindset, information, social media. It's highlighting your car, your gadgets, your phones, your technology. But it can also bring an important conversation to the fore. Some of you might be having an important conversation about work, an important conversation about your goals or your career. But certainly there could be significant communication coming up for you in the first half of the month, Leo. Some of the big news this month, Uranus is shifting signs. Now, I think you're really going to like this because it's moving out of an angular house. Uranus is leaving your 10th house of career. And I have to say, of all the people I know who are Leo risings, since Uranus went into their 10th house of career in 2018, some of them felt the rumblings of this beforehand, but Uranus going into the 10th house, so many became self-employed. So many became known for being different, for shaking up the status quo, for taking a professional path that was very unusual, that was very unforeseen by others. Independence, freedom being the name of the game for many. That's not to say that everybody did. But it could have been a time of professional disruptions as well for many of you. Now, Uranus is in the final degree of Taurus from the 5th to the 25th of April. So for you, Leo, I would allow yourself some wiggle room to allow for or make changes when it comes to your career. So maybe you want to do something different and you've been putting it off and you feel like it's now or never. You want to make a change that suits you better, that gives you freedom, that gives you the opportunity to be yourself, to do something differently than what you've done before or what other people know you to do. So there could be some unexpected shocks and changes linked to your career. Now, I think for a lot of you, Leo, with Venus going through your 10th house until the 24th, you're very well received publicly. People like you, your boss likes you, your public like you perform well to an audience. There could be positive social events happening in your career. You could be noticing good luck in your career during that time period, but you may also be feeling the call to change, to finally break free from a rut when it comes to your career, to notice that either you are making significant changes and liberating yourself from a professional issue, or those things are happening around you. So you might have unexpected events happening at your career. Your boss suddenly leaves, your company makes changes, or your role changes, or what you're known for changes. There could be substantial changes when it comes to your career this month, Leo, because the anaretic degree, especially this time, Uranus did touch that degree last year, but especially now because Uranus is going into Gemini. Uranus won't return to Taurus for another 80 odd years. So you might see that, you might not. But if you do see that, you'll probably not be working. Oh, well, then who knows actually the way things are going. But either way, whether you see it again or not, this is the final hurrah for quite a long time. So Uranus is saying it is now or never. Let's shake things up one final time to see if you have integrated the unconventional way of doing things, the ability to be yourself professionally, the ability to do things differently, the ability to march to the beat of your own drum, Leo. And then Uranus goes into Gemini, and this is your 11th house. Now, Uranus is going to be in your 11th house for 6 or 7 odd years, so don't expect everything to change in the blink of an eye in April. But just to give you a preview of what this will be, Uranus as a transit, it brings liberation, it brings sudden change, it brings a taste of the unconventional, it brings disruption, it also gets you into a state of having a breakthrough or a breakdown sometimes. But it really wants to shake up where things have become stagnant and allow you to see things differently and experience things differently. In your 11th house, that's about your friendships, encountering people that are very different from you, choosing very different company, unexpectedly meeting your soul tribe, becoming part of groups of people that believe in something, that are humanitarians, that are rebellious, that are unconventional, that are a bit different. Sudden beginnings in friendship, sudden endings in friendship. Really exciting social opportunities too, with Uranus going through the 11th house. Becoming friends with people from so many different walks of life can also be a flavor of Uranus transiting the 11th as well, but it can also disrupt the groups and teams that you are a part of now if they've become stagnant or stuck in ruts, Leo. But it can be incredibly exciting socially, and because it's the 11th house, it's not squaring you anymore. So I think a lot of you as a fixed sign rising will really appreciate Uranus moving into the 11th and the excitement that it brings to your social life. That is what I have for you, Leo, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Virgo, welcome to April 2026. This is your horoscope for the month ahead. Virgo, you have so much planetary activity happening in your 8th house. You are well and truly God's strongest soldier. I'm just joking. The 8th house is a house that I recognize scares people in astrology, but this can actually be an incredibly profound and transformative time. So try not to worry about it, is what I'm trying to say, because I know that your mind will be on the 8th house matters. And the 8th house scares people because it's associated with death and taxes. Both of those in themselves can be quite scary concepts. But this is also an opportunity for profound internal transformation in ways you wouldn't believe, Virgo. So let's talk about Mars connecting with Neptune. Firstly, that's happening on the 13th. as you know, Neptune and Saturn, they're the longer term influences for your eighth house, the slower moving planets, which dictate a lot of the themes that we're experiencing in our own lives. Mars meets Neptune on the 13th because Mars enters Aries, where it's very strong. It's very, you know, comfortable being in Aries. Mars is domicile in Aries. Mars will enter Aries on the 9th and meet Neptune on the 13th. This can be a time for you, Virgo, where the lower vibration of this could be influential in a negative way when it comes to your joint finances and resources. That's not for all of you, but just be mindful of other people's motives if they are connected to you or trying to connect to you in a financial sense. So there could be some confusion or illusion or even deception when it comes to joint financial matters. So that can be inheritances, loans, mortgages. Just take extra care when it comes to big sums of money, Virgo, but also other people's motivations when it comes to big sums of money around that time. Mars going through Aries could really drive you to invest. It could really drive you to pay off debt. It could really drive you to merge with somebody else financially for the sake of long-term investments. And in fact, Mars connecting with Saturn on the 19th can be great for long-term investments or committing to paying off debt or restructuring your finances. But just be mindful of any hidden motives or potential deception this month from other people when it comes to money, when it comes to money that you're maybe inheriting or money that you have with a partnership or money that you're putting into a business or even your financial matters pertaining to governments or banks. Just take extra care this month. This is something you want to commit to long term is greater financial hygiene. And you might become more aware of your own financial responsibilities. Certainly with Saturn here, I see Saturn going through the eighth house when people really feel that they want to pay off debt, they want to limit their spending, they want to make substantial financial commitments and they take them very seriously. So Saturn going through the eighth, you see with people getting their first mortgage or they get married and join their finances, even if the other person makes a lot less than they do, or, they kind of, Saturn can have a limiting effect, but it's also a committing and solidifying effect as well. And it tends to work out quite well in the long run. But it's basically where you become very serious about your money, especially when it links to other people. So you may accept certain limitations, you may accept responsibilities, and you may also have better boundaries with your money, especially if it is with somebody else. In fact, there could be a new chapter opening up for you here, Virgo, when it comes to something financial that you are committing to, maybe with another person. Now, that being said, the eighth house is also to do with inner transformation, shadow work. So, therapy. A lot of you could be signing up with a therapist. I could see that being very likely for a lot of Virgo risings in particular. New moon conjunct Chiron in the eighth. Wanting to work through a fear, a phobia, a pattern in your life, wanting to work through a betrayal, wanting to work through a fear of intimacy, a fear of connection. This can actually be a month as well where you find yourself getting a lot closer to somebody else. Also, Mars connecting with Neptune, deeply merging with another person, especially in an intimate relationship, feeling really spiritually connected to somebody else. Likely for a lot of you in a romantic fashion, but this can also be where you're really connecting with a therapist and you're opening up and becoming more raw and vulnerable, and you're committed to doing the work that's required in order to face this fear. So I could see a lot of you, the eighth house may manifest as something financial for a good 50% of you, and for others of you, it's sort of a personal transformation that you're going through when it comes to possibly your mental health or your shadow work, Virgo. with so much happening in the eighth house. But speaking of money, there's a full moon in your second house on the 1st or the 2nd of April, depending on where you are. And that means that it's highlighting your money, the money that you make. This is a great full moon to sit down with your financial statements, your bank statements, look at your earnings, look at your spendings, and just do a financial check-in. You could be paid for something, you could receive a gift, you could have a big purchase to make, you could be wanting, I think, Virgo, to possibly spend your money or save your money connected to travel or higher education. There could be a link between higher education, study, travel, and what you're spending your money on or investing your money on this month. Virgo, great month to do a financial inventory. Likely a lot of conversations and talks about money. And hopefully you're feeling like there is long-term potential in what's going on. Just don't rush into anything financially because it really will have long-term implications. And if you're going in with rose-tinted glasses or going in blindly, a lot of these long-term implications might not necessarily be what you want, Virgo. But I could definitely see a lot of you working through an old issue that has maybe been eating away at you for quite some time, and you finally feel like you can face it or talk about it or work through it. Now, other things happening for you, Virgo, that are monumental is that Uranus is moving into your 10th house. Now, this is an angular house, so this is very impactful. Uranus was actually in your 10th house last year between July and November. Did you make any changes with your career or your public image or your reputation? Did you decide to do something out of character, out of the ordinary, something different, shake things up? Or maybe disruptions happened to you. Maybe there was something disruptive going on in your career or with your business or with a parent, something unusual out of the ordinary. Much of the same. When Uranus enters your 10th house on April 25th, it's kickstarting a longer term transit. So if you don't feel anything right away, don't worry. It's not defunct. It's just that it's a longer term influence. And for those of you that have early degree Virgo placements or early degree Gemini, Sagittarius, or Pisces placements, you might feel this instantaneously. But either way, Virgo, the shakeups, the liberation, the breakthroughs, the disruptions, the shocks, all linked to your career over the next 6 or 7 years. All linked to freeing you up to do something differently, to walk a different path than you thought you would, to break with convention, to try something new, to be known as something else, to escape the limitations that you've put on yourself professionally or have been placed on you professionally. It can be really exciting. And honestly, I've just, witnessed Leo um, rising people who've had this transit since 2018 when Uranus was going through Taurus. It was their 10th house. So many have become self-employed. So many have discovered their purpose. And it's so different to what they thought it would be. So many have broken free from needing to do things a certain way or behave a certain way professionally, or they've broken past their own limitations when it comes to their professional persona. And it's been very liberating for them. So don't be too scared of it, Virgo. This can be a wonderful transit for finding something new and novel. And it's always so unexpected. You rarely find when Uranus goes into a house, it rarely plays out how you think it's going to, because Uranus is about the future. So sometimes this can be, Virgo, that you're going to go through a career change in a couple of years, but that career doesn't exist yet. So don't limit yourself to possibilities. There can be many different ways that this transit manifests for you, especially with Pluto in the sixth. I mean, your routines, your job, your roles, your services, your responsibilities, all transforming uh, for the next few years, for sure, if not longer than few. depending on how it's hitting your chart. But yes, the 10th house and the 6th house being activated by the outer planets, professional changes for sure. If you've changed jobs already, you might change jobs again, or you might have changes in management, in jobs. And you might also find as well, Virgo, that there could be unexpected changes with a parent. Maybe you have a parent in their 60s and they've always done things a certain way, and then all of a sudden they text you and say, I've decided to go backpacking through Europe. People can surprise you in the 10th house for sure. That is what I have for you, Virgo, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Libra. Welcome to your horoscope on April 2026. Libra, this is really quite a monumental month for you when it comes to relationships because we have this absolutely blinding spotlight on our Aries houses. And for you, that is about relationships, significant others, partnerships, marriages, one-on-one connections, very much highlighted this month. So there can be new beginnings happening here for sure. We do have longer term influences that are present within your seventh house. So Neptune is a long-term influence and Saturn is a long-term influence in terms of your connections and relationships. Neptune is about connecting to the ideal, what your vision is, what you feel would be best when it comes to partnerships, relationships, and close connections. And Saturn is about long-term commitments and investments. It tests to see if this is built to last or not. So you have the dream, but you have the idealism and the realism working together in your relationship sector. And now the inner planets are coming along to connect with those visions or those plans and activate them. So how might this look for you, Libra? Well, for some of you, this could be a new relationship that is entering the picture because we have a new moon on the 17th in your seventh house and it's connected to Chiron. It's exactly conjunct Chiron. And it is ruled by a very strong domicile Mars in Aries connected to Saturn. Some of you could absolutely be beginning a new relationship or meeting someone this month that is here to teach you something. This could be someone that you commit to for the long term. This could be somebody that you learn a lot from. And this could be someone who helps you heal. Now, how that manifests depends on where you're at in your own journey when it comes to relationships. But for a lot of you, there could absolutely be somebody new entering the picture. And it could be brand spanking new because there are no retrogrades this month. There are a lot of planets moving through Aries at great speed. So your relationship life could change in the blink of an eye and it could actually move quite quick in some circumstances. But I would temper it a bit because Saturn is there. So a couple of dates to watch out for. The 13th of April, Neptune and Mars are connecting in your seventh house. So you might want to take action on your idealistic vision of relationships. So if you see yourself with a spiritual person, you might start going to spiritual places. You might start going to church to meet this person. You might start to take action on your vision. For some of you, you may need to be careful in case someone is pulling the wool over your eyes because Neptune can be, especially when it connects with a malefic, sometimes it can be a deceptive influence. So when it comes to relationships, try to be as clear as you possibly can about what you want, what your boundaries are, what you will and will not accept, and where it's going. Neptune can be very confusing. So you might find yourself confused by what somebody else is doing at this time. Trust your intuition. And if you feel, as I say, that maybe you have a vision of this type of person that you believe you're going to end up with, you dream of a future partner, align yourself with what you think they're doing or how to get there, if that is what you're looking for. Now, Mars and Saturn connect on the 19th. Saturn is a fascinating planet, really, because Saturn can absolutely set you up for long-term success, but it can sometimes you have to get there the hard way. So you need to be patient. You might experience delays, obstacles, frustrations. Sometimes Saturn going through the seventh house can be where you feel like you go through periods of crickets. When it comes to relationships, you feel lonely, you feel isolated. And other times it can bring someone into your life that you could be so serious about. Maybe they're older than you or just more mature in some way. You feel like you could marry this person. And in some cases, it's more so that you will learn a lot from this person. It would be what you would call a karmic relationship. You can have a lot of different experiences when it comes to relationships now that you have two of the outer planets in your relationship sector. But Mars connecting with Saturn on the 19th, it can test your relationships. It can test the limitations. It can test the durability of them. Sometimes that can manifest as an event that tests you. Some of you might decide to separate from a partner. Some of you might decide you need space from a partner, distance from a partner, or that might be something happening in their life, or maybe they have to travel for work and you're having to be apart for a time period. And as I say, for others of you, you can meet somebody this month who is a healing influence on you. Maybe they're actually a healer. Maybe they are someone who is going to teach you a lot about love and life and connection. So just be mindful that not all is as it seems. Sometimes in April with other people, they might be pulling the wool over your eyes. They might be selective in what they share. It might not be that they're being outwardly deceptive on purpose for some grand, ulterior, malefic motive. It might just be that they're hiding the fact that they've gone through a divorce, or they might be hiding the fact that I don't know. I don't know what they could be hiding. It could be a multitude of things, but people might be more selective of what they share with you with Neptune, and sometimes you could maybe feel a little bit misguided by that. But it can also be a month where you meet people with Saturn who are actually very loyal and trustworthy and dependable, and you could commit to that person, Libra. So you may need to look at your relationships and see if you're maybe being too idealistic or you're being too harsh or cold or serious or stern, or if it's become all work and no play, or if it is just a fantasy and you're just running away from reality. Relationships can be wonderful mirrors this month, Libra, as to what is going on with you at the end of the day. And you might find that around the 1st or the 2nd of April, give or take the week before or after, really, the full moon in your sign is illuminating yourself, your physical body, your appearance, your aesthetic, your style, your feelings, your wants, your needs, your desires. It's highlighting what's going on with you. So you might find that other people are mirroring back to you something within yourself, and it can be very insightful to discover what that is. And you might discover more about yourself in the first week of April when it comes to how you've changed and evolved and transformed, Libra. And the spotlight will be well and truly on you. I think this month you might notice that you have some sort of breakthrough when it comes to the shadow work that you've been doing, maybe when it comes to something financial, a joint financial matter, a joint financial relationship. Some of you could definitely be, and I'm not saying this to those of you that don't have this on the horizon at all, but some of you could be going through a divorce and you could be liberating yourself financially from somebody else, or you might just feel psychologically liberated by getting away from a relationship or a connection with Uranus there in the eighth house. On the other hand, some of you could be connecting with someone where you feel like the presence of them helps you heal and transcend issues that you've had, patterns that you've had. You might find yourself breaking a pattern, Libra, in April that was difficult to break. And that's because Uranus is going to be at the anaretic degree, the crisis degree of Taurus in your eighth house from the 5th of April to the 25th when it then moves into Uranus. So the eighth house, you could find that you're liberated from something financially, that there are sudden or maybe even unexpected changes financially. There could be unexpected changes when it comes to connections in your life and other people. Maybe their financial affairs change. But Uranus moving into Gemini from the 25th. This is your ninth house. This is very friendly to you. Now, don't be expecting there to necessarily be this grand shock or surprise in your ninth house this month, Libra, with Uranus's entry. Sometimes that can happen, yes, if it's activating your chart for sure. But Uranus is part of a longer term transit here in Gemini, 6 to 7 years. And Uranus will be there in your ninth house until 2032. So that means that you're going to be experiencing breakthroughs, liberation, shocks, surprises, disruption, breaking free from the status quo, taking an unconventional route when it comes to higher education. Maybe doing a degree or something that others would not expect of you in something unusual or changing your degree. Maybe you always thought you were going to be an accountant. And then you get into the course, and a year later, you think, actually, I want to be a physiotherapist. You just could change what you're studying quite significantly. There could be disruptions to study. There could be disruption to your university or college experience. For others of you, if it's not to do with higher education, maybe you surprise people by going back to school. But if it's not to do with education, it could be travel, traveling places that are out of the ordinary for some reason, maybe going on some sort of a traveling experience that just feels a little bit weird. It just feels a little bit unconventional. It just feels a little bit wacky. The type of trip that people sort of raise their eyebrows and say, really? You went where? Doing something different. It can happen. It can be good. It can be um, exciting to go somewhere that is very much out of the ordinary in some capacity. So these are the different types of areas that can really be shaken up for you, Libra, and also your beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs, your perspective of the world, they can change in the blink of an eye. And if you have been going down one particular path when it comes to your spiritual journey and it no longer aligns or it feels stagnant or stuck, you can go down a very different path when it comes to your beliefs and when it comes to your spiritual expression as well. That is what I have for you, Libra. I hope you have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Scorpio, welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. So, Scorpio, we have quite the pileup here in your sixth house in April. And this is going to be putting the spotlight very brightly on your health and wellness routines, but also your job, your work. So, you might find in April that it is a very busy month. Things might move very quickly, very fast when it comes to your job, when it comes to what you're doing at your job, your roles, your responsibilities, when it comes to people in your workplace, when it comes to your health and well-being practices. So, how you take care of yourself. The first house in astrology is your physical body. The sixth house is how you take care of it. So, this is when you show up to the gym. This is what you put in your body. This is what you eat. This is how you move. It's the sport that you do or the exercise that you take and that type of thing, Scorpio. So much focus on work, on health, on your daily routines, and yes, the mundane with this almighty pileup in Aries. So, first thing, Scorpio, is that we obviously have Neptune and Saturn as the longer term influences in your sixth house, and you will be feeling the effects of that already. So, Neptune going into your sixth house, this can be about taking a more holistic or spiritual approach to your physical health. So, becoming more aware of the body, the connection between our emotions and our body, or perhaps becoming aware of how we feel differently when we meditate or when we sleep well or when we engage in some spiritual practice on our daily routine, maybe even daily prayer or something of that nature, how it contributes to your health. That's the influence of Neptune. Hypnosis is something that I have seen Scorpio risings doing since last year when Neptune first entered Aries. Hypnosis to conquer a bad health habit. I've seen that happen, or subliminals. Listening to subliminals while you sleep to give up smoking. like oh gosh, there's the episode of The Simpsons where Homer has a weight loss tape, but they accidentally send him the improved vocabulary tape. So just make sure with Neptune, you know, if you're listening to subliminals, what you're actually getting. But it worked out in his favor in some ways. So Mars connecting with Neptune on the 13th. That can be a little bit confusing about what it is that you need to do in a professional sense, work-wise, or what you need to do health-wise. Neptune can be very foggy, but in Aries, it can actually be quite smoky. So you might not necessarily know what it is that you need to take action on. Neptune connecting with Mars as well. Just be careful of smoking or vaping or anything like that. You might discover that it is, well, I mean, most of it's proven to be bad for you, I'm pretty sure, but that might be something that you're working through or wanting to work on is something smoke related or even steam related. Just be careful of that because Mars going through the sixth house as it is in Aries for you from the ninth for the rest of the month, it can really push you to do all the things. You know, you want to hit the gym, you want to track your macros, you want to get 10,000 steps, you want to hike a mountain, you want to do all these things. And you get this strong push of energy. When it comes into conflict, contact, well, maybe conflict, when it comes into contact with Neptune in the 13th, your energy levels can just crash or they can fluctuate or they feel confusing or uncertain. They're up and they're down. You might have vague symptoms of something that you can't quite explain. And it's not the easiest day for health. So be careful of pushing through it. It's a good day to do something sort of more mindful when it comes to your health, something maybe a little bit more spiritually orientated, like um, meditation. But Neptune connecting with Mars can be a little bit confusing about what it is that you need to do. Trust your intuition when it comes to healing with that transit. Mars connects with Saturn on the 19th, and this is quite a humdinger for your work. So Mars can be very pushy, and you might feel like you need to get everything done. People around you will probably also want to get everything done yesterday. There will be somebody saying, we need to do this now. We need to push this through. This has to happen immediately. We need to get this off the ground because there's no retrogrades and Aries energy isn't about getting it right. It's just about getting it done. And you might find that there's a lot of pushing to get things over the line or a lot of busyness in your job. Saturn can be very heavy and it can be very restrictive and it can say, this is too much and you might burn out. So be mindful of the 19th. You might hit a bit of a wall when it comes to your energy. You might need to re-strategize for the long game with a work project or a health matter. You know, say you've been going to the gym every single day because you have the energy, then you get to the Mars-Saturn conjunction and you just feel so flat and you've got a cold and you just need to rest. You just need to take some downtime. Saturn wants things to be sustainable for the long run. Yes, it wants hard work, but if you push beyond your limitations, Saturn can be very testing. So be mindful of that. Do try to pace yourself a little bit this month with your work commitments or even your health commitments, Scorpio. Speaking of which, I think with the new moon on the 17th in your sixth house, Scorpio, you're very focused on healing the self. You're very focused on healing your relationship to food, to exercise, healing your physical body. You're very focused on healing your relationship to your job or your work, or maybe even healing your relationship to a coworker or an employee. There can be new people enter your workplace this month. One of them, at least, could be a very healing process. Some people at work could be deceptive. Some people at work could be draining. Other people at work can be very loyal and wonderful mentors or teachers. And other people in work can offer you spiritual perspectives that you may not have been able to access alone. A lot of different energy playing out in your workplace and also in your approach to health and well-being. But I do think with that new moon, Scorpio, you look like you're starting a new health practice or process, a wellness routine focused on healing the self with Chiron. focused on improving your insecurities around work, in self-acceptance for what you do work-wise or how you take care of your physical body. A lot of focus on the self. I just want to mention too, I do have a video on it that focuses on it alone, but on the 1st or 2nd of April, there is a full moon in Libra, and that's your 12th house, which is the opposite of your 6th. Full moons in the 12th house, people might not see you. You might be finding yourself coming down with a cold. You might find yourself needing more sleep, more rest. You could be a little bit run down. You could need some time alone to rest, retreat, and recuperate, Scorpio. So take that if you need it. You don't want to get burnt out in April. Rest where you can in the first few days of April. You might also be coming into awareness of a secret or perhaps information that you were not aware of comes to you in a dream or in a conversation or in journaling. You could have very clear insights into your own soul, into your own patterns and what you need to release. I think a lot of you might actually be working on releasing a certain behavior when it comes to your health this month that is sabotaging your progress. We also have some very interesting news for you, Scorpio. Uranus is leaving your opposite sign for 84 years. It's been 84 years. You know that woman in the Titanic? It's been 84 years. That is you. Well, it's not you, but Uranus won't be back to Taurus for another 84 years. So you may or may not experience that again, but it is going to be going out with a bit of a bang. It's going to connect with Venus on the 23rd, 24th. But from the 5th to the 25th, Uranus is going to be at the crisis degree of your 7th house. Unexpected changes when it comes to your relationships. This can be breakups, this can be makeups, this can be unexpected new alliances, unexpected new partners. This can be eureka moments when it comes to an issue in a relationship. But for a lot of you, there can be last minute shakeups to your partnership. So that could be, for a lot of Scorpio risings, Uranus going through the 7th, changing how you relate to a partner, changing what you want from relationships, shaking up what was conventional when it comes to connections. There could have been breakups, there could have been marriages, divorces, engagements, cancelled engagements, meeting somebody unexpectedly, dating someone entirely different to what you're used to. And Uranus here is finalizing that transit at the final degree. So there could be some last minute plot twists when it comes to your connections or your partnerships. That could simply be another person is surprising you in a big way, Scorpio. And especially with Venus, there can be unexpected surprises in love. Now, for a lot of you, Venus going through your 7th house until the 24th, you could find love. You could get into a relationship. You could find a significant other. Relationships could be your focus. You could date someone very different to what you're used to, take up with someone that you wouldn't usually date, but you're just very drawn to them. I think a really good example of this is Katy Perry. Since 2018, she was in a relationship, then they broke up, then they got back together, then they got engaged, then they broke up, and then she started dating a prime minister. So very unexpected indeed. There can be very unexpected developments happening in your love life still, Scorpio, before the end of April. And then Uranus moves into your 8th house. So this is a longer term transit. You're looking at 6 or 7 years. And that means that April might not necessarily show exactly what this is just yet. But to give you the context of it, the general overview of it, Uranus going through the 8th house. Uranus itself brings unexpected shakeups and disruptions. It doesn't like what's stagnant. So this can be to do with financial matters, other people's money, your spouse's money, money connected to the government, big sums of money, loans, mortgages. There can be unexpected events, disruptions, but there can also be breakthroughs with this sector. This can also be about your shadow work, your inner work, working with a therapist, breaking through limitations psychologically, breaking patterns, breaking free of old trauma as well. Those can be things that happen when Uranus goes through the 8th house, but it can also really connect you with the occult. Uranus going through the 8th, it can really connect you with different occult practices. It can connect you with astrology. For a lot of you, it can connect you with tarot, and you might find yourself having these unexpected breakthroughs through mediums like astrology or even actual mediums, experiencing these different ways of healing with the eighth house. But there can absolutely be some surprises linked to other people financially, or when it comes to mortgages, loans, money connected to other people with Uranus going through the eighth house. But unless you have anything at 0 through 6 degrees of the mutable signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, you might not necessarily be feeling this right away this year, but it's certainly going to be an area going through innovation over the next 7, right up until 2032. That's what I have for you, Scorpio. I hope you have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. Sagittarius, we have an almighty lineup of planets in Aries. And that means for all of us that our Aries houses are being very much highlighted in the month of April. So, fifth house themes for you: fun, creativity, leisure, your passions, your hobbies, your love life, your romantic life. Also, if you have children, it highlights your children, pregnancies, births. If you don't have children, it can be important children in your life, like nieces, nephews. And this extends to your adult children. If you have children, but they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, it still applies to them. So a lot of focus on this area of life for you, Sagittarius. So for some of you, this could be very focused on romance. For others of you, it could be very focused on your children. And for others of you, it could be very focused on having a great time or your creative or artistic expression. I want to say for a lot of Sagittarius risings, big focus on love, because we have activity activating the 7th as well, but I'll get to that in a second. So Mars is entering Aries on the 9th. Mars is very strong in Aries. The sun is going to be in Aries until the 19th. So we have this energy, a lot of energy to express yourself creatively, to do the things you love to do, to put your time and energy into a creative outlet, a passion, a hobby, just something that makes you happy, Sagittarius. To go to the concert, to go to the theater, to go to the sports game, to do the competitive sport for fun. Maybe it's paintballing for some of you. Maybe it's Dungeons and Dragons for others. Whatever it is that makes you happy, you're very motivated to do the fun things in April, Sagittarius, and really connect with your inner child and how your inner child wants to express itself. Now, we do have the longer term energies of Neptune and Saturn here, and they're being activated by the inner planets. So let's start with Mars connecting with Neptune on the 13th. This is an interesting energy romantically, because there could be a lot of romantic sparks flying between you and somebody else. There could be romantic idealism where you're trying to figure out if someone is a soulmate, or you're maybe seeing them with rose-tinted glasses. So for those of you that are dating, it could be quite difficult to decipher if this is going somewhere, if this is a mutual crush, if this person is a wise person to date. There can be maybe some confusion when it comes to your love life, when it comes to dating. The confusion can also extend to matters pertaining to your children. You might be a little bit confused about something going on with a child in your life. You might not be sure of what their motivations or what they're actually doing. With Neptune, there could be a little bit of confusion about that. It could be a wonderful day, though, to act on something creatively, to throw yourself into a project, to channel your emotions into something artistic, to create something. You don't have to get it perfect. It doesn't have to be the next, Water Lilies by Monet, but it can be that you're just expressing yourself and your emotions and your feelings through your art, through your creativity, or doing something that you love, especially if you are a little bit confused at this time, as everyone will be with the Mars-Neptune conjunction. Mars then meets Saturn on the 19th, and this can be a bit of a reality check when it comes to what you're doing creatively. It can be a reality check when it comes to something that you're doing for fun. Somebody could spoil your fun, sort of pop your balloon with Mars and Saturn connecting around that time. There can be some issues with your romantic life. So it can be a reality check on whether or not someone's actually good for you or a good romantic um, partner. It can be that there is something frustrating happening with a child. There can be delays in this area as well. It could be that you need to persist with something with a child, or you need to persist with something creatively. And you're looking more long term at your long term strategy as a parent, maybe, or your long term strategy when it comes to a creative project or something that you're doing for fun. Some of you could absolutely commit to something that is fun, but will take a long time to complete this month. So, something that is going to require discipline and patience, that can be painting. As an example, something that's going to take a lot of your time, skill, and effort and will not be an overnight success with this energy. Mars going through the fifth can be a great party influence where you go out and have a good time, but Neptune and Saturn together can be one hell of a hangover. So just be mindful of that, that you may find yourself having too much fun, believe it or not, and you need to temper it here, there, and everywhere. You can't go to every party. Well, you can't, but Saturn will probably show you why you shouldn't. Mars going through the fifth house can also be where you just feel like you have the time and energy to do all the things you want to do, and then you can burn out. A lot of people can really burn out with this lineup this month. I also want to draw your attention, Sagittarius, to the new moon in your fifth house on the 17th. This is an opportunity to heal your inner child for a lot of you because Chiron is there, the wounded healer. So maybe you're doing something artistically, creatively, or just simply for fun, an outlet for expression. Maybe it's something entrepreneurial, something that helps you heal your inner child, doing something that your inner child would love, would like, and would be impressed by. For others of you, this can be about healing your connection to romance, love, and dating. It could be that there's actually a new romantic chapter happening in your life, Sagittarius, that is with someone who is a bit of a healer with Chiron, or a connection that is just simply healing, or maybe healing through something artistic, healing through something fun. Some of you could be experiencing this new moon as a pregnancy or a birth or a new chapter in the life of a child. Maybe your child is going through a healing phase in some way, shape, or form, Sagittarius, with that new moon as well, or it's a new chapter in their life where they're committing to something long term. But yes, for some of you, it could be new love coming into your life in April as well, if you're looking for that. For others of you, it could just be a new chapter in the way that you enjoy yourself. So a lot happening there in the fifth house. And in the early part of April, the 1st and the 2nd of April, there's a full moon, but you'll be feeling the effects of it within the first week. The full moon in the 11th house, Sagittarius. And this is again highlighting your social life, fun, enjoyment, pleasure, going to the party, going to the event, networking. There can be something coming up with friends. Maybe you have artistic friends. Maybe you have social events that you can attend. Maybe you are networking with people. There can be connections between love and friendship as well. So if you're single, this could be a friends to lovers situation that transpires with that full moon in the 11th house. But it can also be that your vision of the future is maybe shifting, Sagittarius, possibly due to a pregnancy or children or attitudes around children, relationships to children, something like that as well could be activating a change in your vision of the future or changes in your love life. And let's look at your partnerships because Uranus is going to be entering your relationship sector on the 25th. So that's a big deal. Uranus has an 84-year orbit, so you probably will not have experienced this before. This is a really interesting energy to have across from you because you're a Sagittarius. Uranus is going to be entering your opposite sign of Gemini, which is the spouse, the marriage partner, the committed relationship, the business partnership. and just generally how you relate to other people. So, the really nice thing about this month is that Venus also enters that sector on the 24th, which is really a blessing for your love life and your relationships. From the 24th, you can get on much better with your partner. You can have really nice times with your partner. You can find a partnership if you're looking for a partnership. You're more magnetic to other people in all shapes and forms. So that could be that you're attracting more close friendships, more business opportunities through other people, or even attracting more clients. But Uranus going into this sector can be a bit of a shakeup. And this might not manifest right away in April, but it can be that you sort of start to feel the energy of it. So if there's something in your relationship that needs to change, something that has become stagnant, something that has become stale, this might be a time where within your relationship you try something that is a little bit different, but it works for you both, as opposed to needing other people to understand it. So a good example of this would be where you see people who are married, but they actually live in different houses and they keep their different houses. And that's not the conventional route, but it works for them, you know? So you in a relationship that you have may decide to do things a little bit differently. If things have become stale or stagnant, or you find something that works best for you both, but other people don't necessarily understand that, that's okay. It may also be that if you're looking for a partnership over the next 7 years, you go for someone very different to what you're used to. Uranus going through the seventh house is about connecting with someone who marches to the beat of their own drum. There's something about them that's refreshing, liberating. They shake up the status quo. They do something different, or they're known for something different. There's just an unconventional quality. And yes, there is also the association with the seventh house for some people that they enter polyamorous relationships with Uranus going through the seventh house, if that is something you're interested in. Um, Uranus won't make you do anything you don't want to do. So whatever your preferences are, Sagittarius, where you feel yourself leaning into something a little bit different, that's the energy of Uranus in your seventh house. So this one can be associated with shocks and surprises. So meeting somebody and being engaged within 6 months, um, that can be a manifestation. Divorces can be a manifestation. Dating someone entirely different to your usual type, rather, can be a manifestation. There's so many different ways that it can play out. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to divorce your spouse, for sure. I mean, plenty of Scorpio risings have not had that experience with Uranus going through their seventh house. It just simply means that you're leaning into something a little bit different. And if you're single, you really may find yourself dating someone that no one would expect you to date and liking it, being quite happy. So lean into the non-conventional energy of Uranus, in that you may feel like you want to do things your way within a relationship. That's likely going to be something that works better for you than trying to hold on to the only way you know how of doing something or relating to other people. And just generally, Sagittarius, you can find yourself connecting with people who are just simply very different generally, and learning more from people who look at life differently than people who are just going with the flow or the status quo. So before Uranus gets to your seventh house, Sagittarius, Uranus is going to be doing its final movements through Taurus, your sixth house, and it's going to be at the anaretic degree of Taurus from the 5th of April right up until the 25th of April. And this is a bit of a wild card energy. Uranus at the final degree of any sign, of any house, tends to really exaggerate the energy to show you where you need to change, where you need to break free from a limitation or shake up the status quo or release stagnancy. It can be a bit of a wild card energy. So with it going through your sixth house until the 25th, but especially over that anaretic degree, you might see around you, Sagittarius, that there's a lot of chaos going on when it comes to your workplace. So surprising changes maybe with coworkers, with employees, within your workspace, within what you do for work. This can also perhaps for some of you be to do with health. It can be that you change up the way that you take care of your health. It can be the way that you eat. It can be the way that you exercise. Uranus has been going through this sector and revolutionizing your health, your well-being, your diet, your exercise, revolutionizing that sector since 2018. And this is the final opportunity to shake it up for good. So if you've been thinking about changing the way that you eat or trying that sport that's maybe a little bit unusual or trying that new wellness practice that you're interested in, even if it is a bit unusual or quirky, this is the time for it, Sagittarius. So there can be some unexpected developments happening with your work or with your health and well-being practices between now and the end of April. But that is what I have for you, Sagittarius. I hope you have a great month and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Capricorn, and welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. Capricorn, we have an almighty buildup of planets in the sign of Aries this month. And that means that our Aries house is being very highly activated and it will be very much at the forefront of our April experience. So for you, Capricorn, this is happening in your fourth house of home and family. There can be a lot of attention given to family relationships, family members, home or living situations, property matters, and perhaps an increased interest in your root or your lineage, your ancestry, and just generally a big focus on security as well. So Capricorn, we do have longer term influences happening with Neptune. It's very idealistic, it's very dreamy when it comes to the home and family. But we also have your ruling planet, Saturn, which is very grounding, but sometimes a bit restrictive when it comes to these matters as well. So you might be feeling very creative with your home around the 13th because Mars and Neptune are meeting up in your fourth house. So you could feel like you're wanting to work on something in the home that feels quite idealistic, dreamy. You know, you could be getting the Pinterest app open and going through different styles for the home, redecorating. You might want something to have a different ambiance, a different feel to it, a different energy to it. This can be very interesting to work with feng shui or perhaps having someone do an energetic clearing on your home with Mars and Neptune. But it can also be when it comes to family members, maybe wanting to practice forgiveness, maybe wanting to heal family relationships. But there can be confusion there. You know, you might be a little bit confused about a family relationship. You might be a little bit confused about a home matter. You know, maybe there's something off in the home and you don't quite know what it is or where it's coming from, like an odor, and you can't source the odor, or just a vibration, a feeling. If you've ever walked into a room and you just get hit with a huge vibe, for want of a better expression, you get hit with a vibe in a room, the energy is just very intense and profound. That might be something that you're experiencing and you don't quite know what it is. You don't quite know how to change it because you're not sure what exactly is happening and what you need to do to fix it. This might also be a time where if you feel like the outside world is scary and loud, you just want to escape to your home and cocoon and be cozy. That can also be something because Neptune can be quite an escapist energy too. So in the fourth house, this can either be that you want to escape to the home or get out of the home. Uh, that can be one way that this is playing out as well. Mars is then going to meet Saturn, which is quite a different energy on the 19th. And Saturn, it's about our responsibility. So this is highlighting your responsibilities to property, to your family, to the home, your roles within the home. It could feel quite heavy. You could feel like you're overburdened with stuff that you need to do pertaining to a property matter, pertaining to a family member, maybe your parenting duties or caring for elderly parents or caring for young kids or purchasing property, renovating property, whatever it is that you're doing, Capricorn, when it comes to the home, could feel very restrictive and very limiting. This can be where you are renovating and you suddenly feel, why am I doing this? This is so much work, it's so much money, it's so much effort. Or you just reach some kind of limit, maybe with a planning matter, maybe with planning permission. Maybe there's someone in authority restricting what you want to do with the home, or it's not the right time to move. You want to move, but you're hit with a limitation, or you're trying to get into a new property, but they have to wait. There can be frustrations and a need for patience when it comes to home and family matters as well. And also having good boundaries with your family, Capricorn, because you can be more prone to conflict and overexerting yourself when it comes to the home and family with Mars going through the fourth house. So just be mindful of that. There is a new beginning happening though for you in this sector too. So new moon on the 17th of the month, conjunct Chiron. This can be a new chapter for you when it comes to a home or property, property matter. Um, this could be that you are moving into a new home, moving home, selling a home, renovating a home. With Chiron, this could be something that is, for whatever reason, healing for you. So maybe you are redecorating in a way that feels very safe. It feels very comforting, very pleasant. It feels healing. You could be choosing healing colors or healing imagery on the wall. You could feel more sensitive to the style of your home. But for others of you, it could be that you are actually healing your relationship to a family member. Maybe you have decided that you want to reconcile with a family member or you want to improve the relationship that you have with a family member as well. And for others of you, Capricorn, this can be where you are healing your family lineage and your bloodline and you're researching your family and possibly doing family constellations or something healing like that, with so much happening here in the fourth. Now, by that same token, we have a full moon in the 10th house on the 1st or the 2nd of April, depending on where you are in the world, Capricorn. And this is going to be highlighting your career. So there could be some sort of peak in your professional life around this time. Maybe it's a promotion, maybe it's a job change, maybe you're leaving a job, maybe you are being recognized for your work, Capricorn, maybe as part of a creative project or something that you're doing as a hobby, you're turning it into a business. Maybe you're putting your creative work and talent out there for the world to see. Speaking of creativity, Uranus is having its final hurrah in your fifth house. And Uranus will actually be at the anaretic degree from the 5th to the 25th of April. And so there can be some shakeups creatively, Capricorn. What you do for fun might change. You might have a breakthrough in terms of what makes you happy. There could be some unexpected developments with children, your children or children in your life. There could also be, if you are single and dating, some shakeups there, some unusual experiences or breakthroughs, shaking free of stagnancy, feeling like things are maybe moving quite quickly in your love life for some of you. For others, it can be an unexpected pregnancy with Uranus at the 29th degree. And just generally, love, dating, romance could be quite nice in April with Venus moving through Taurus until the 24th. You could have really pleasant experiences in your love life with Venus going through that sector and also having more fun parties and events to attend. But also, if you have children, just noticing an improvement in your relationship with your children as well, Capricorn. Now, one of the bigger changes then is that when Uranus is done in Taurus for the next 84 years, Uranus is going to move into your sixth house. And this can really shake up your working life, your job. You might need more freedom when it comes to what you're doing for work. You might need more independence. You might need to do something different to shake things up. If you're bored in your job, Capricorn, over the next 7 years, and I know that feels like a long time, but it depends on when Uranus activates parts of your own natal chart. You will probably want to change jobs with Uranus here. There'll probably be a lot of disruptions to your routine For whatever reason, your routine could change. You might be doing something very different one day to the next. Your environment, the places that you work, the things that you do could all be shaken up quite significantly. You can change the way that you exercise or even change your diet in a sudden and unexpected way. With Uranus going through the sixth house, you often see people suddenly go vegetarian after eating meat all their life when Uranus goes through the sixth house or something like that, that kind of change. Or you might find yourself interested in unconventional sports. And when I say unconventional, it doesn't have to be something that is so weird and wacky that everybody looks at you, but it can be something very different to what you've done when it comes to physical activity, because the sixth house is how we take care of our physical body. And when Uranus goes through there, we tend to change how we do that. And it can bring unexpected developments when it comes to health. So sometimes that can, I suppose, push you into making changes to how you take care of yourself generally, Capricorn. And that is what I have for you. Hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Aquarius. Welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. Aquarius, this month we have a lot of activity happening in the sign of Aries. As you can see, the sun will be going through Aries until the 19th. We have a new moon there on the 17th. Mercury joins the clan of Aries on the 14th. Mars joins on the 9th. So for most of the month, we have a rather significant stellium in the sign of Aries. And for you, that is your third house. So big focus for this month for you, Aquarius, communication. That could be conversations that you're having, emails that you're receiving, phone calls that you're receiving, the social media work that you do if you have an online business or a presence online. This is very focused on communication. It can also be if you're a writer, this is a very important month, or you focus a lot on communication for work. Now, this can also be about siblings if you have them, but that can also be your cousins and it can also be your aunts and uncles. It can also be short journeys, short trips that you're taking. This could be a month where you are in the car a lot, or you're going by train more, or you are perhaps taking these short trips to places that are not too far away, short stay vacations. And it's also to do with learning and education. So this would be where you maybe take a workshop or you take a class that you're interested in. For a lot of you, it could definitely be creative classes that you're interested in or creative writing. Because of the meetup between Mars, Mercury, and Neptune, this can be really great for getting creative with your words, getting creative with your communication style. Maybe this is something that you're more interested in. It could be poetry. It could be reading books about spirituality. It could be about sharing messages with other people that are inspirational with Neptune as well. You might find that if you're a teacher, this is quite a significant month in your career where there could be a lot of new beginnings. Maybe for some of you, that's about becoming a teacher or taking a class or putting your work online, sharing your information with others. People might look to you as a bit of a leader when it comes to communication, Aquarius, especially if you're trying to inspire others. But just be mindful that there can be also, with so much in the third house, including Neptune, gossip, people getting the wrong idea, miscommunication. In fact, especially around the 17th with Neptune and Mercury conjunct, there can be an almost Mercury retrograde feel where things feel a little bit strange, things feel a little bit peculiar when it comes to communication. Someone gets the wrong end of the stick. There could be a lot of gossip. You might not be quite sure what you're trying to say, or it might not come out right. It could be a good month to really discipline yourself when it comes to gossip and fact checking, because Mars is going to run into Saturn, and this can bring quite significant consequences for your own words or what information that you're sharing. So bear that in mind. They meet on the 19th. This can also be a time of rather serious conversations. You might have to discuss topics that are very serious or very important. You might have to set boundaries when it comes to communication and how you communicate with other people. Again, be mindful of the information that you're sharing, especially when it comes to work, as Mars is a ruler of your 10th. your 10th house of Scorpio. So just be mindful of sharing information online and stuff like that. You might decide to change how you communicate altogether, Aquarius, especially around the 17th, because we have that new moon and it's conjunct Chiron. So you're aware more than ever, Aquarius, that words heal and your words and your thoughts can be healing rather than hurtful. So you might decide to communicate differently going forward. You might want to use your words to inspire, to heal. You might be wanting to assist in other people's healing. This month can also mark a significant time when it comes to siblings if you have them. There can be a new chapter where if there has been frustration and confrontation with a sibling or challenges with a sibling, you might be looking to heal that relationship with the new moon. With Mars going through the sector, there can be more disagreements or tension with neighbors, siblings, especially around the Mars Saturn conjunction on the 19th. There could be some issues as well with a car. Saturn going through the third house, sometimes it's the end of the road for a certain vehicle, and it's time to change it. Now, a lot of the time with Saturn going through the third house, Aquarius, if you are changing your vehicle, or maybe for some of you, you're actually just embracing Uranus going into Gemini and swapping to cycling or public transport, if you're moving to an area that is possible, sometimes this is about a very practical car, something that is very practical and very long lasting. A lot of people, I'm not giving car advice, I'm not an expert by any means, but I know a lot of people swear by Toyotas in terms of longevity. So maybe that's something that you're interested in. But it could be for a lot of you that this is the month where enough is enough and you have to change your car, especially if it's had issues for quite a long time. There can be some issues as well with traveling, short distance trips that you're taking. You might need to fact check the information that you have about them, the paperwork that you need. If you're studying something, if you are taking short courses, Aquarius, there's a lot of discipline here with Saturn. Now, other things that's happening for you aside from that, Aquarius, we have a full moon on the 1st or the 2nd of April, depending on where you are in the world, in Libra. And this is going to highlight your 9th house. So this might highlight matters pertaining to travel further afield, booking a holiday, changing your mind on a holiday, discussing where you want to travel, or actually for some of you traveling. It can also bring matters to a head with higher education, so exam results, graduations, decisions surrounding your higher education. Possibly for some of you, this could be to do with publishing. You might be having your work published with this third house stellium if you're a writer. And the 9th house full moon, Aquarius, might be where you decide to have your work published or you have an opportunity for that, especially when it comes to your day-to-day work. So that could be interesting for some of you. That full moon is certainly highlighting matters pertaining to long distance travel and also higher education. So those themes may be coming up in the first week of the month. And full moons can bring emotional realizations or they can bring manifestations. Uranus is doing its final wrap up of its time in Taurus. And I know for you as a fixed sign, this probably feels quite good to say goodbye to. Uranus going through the 4th house, it rattles your foundations quite a bit. So since 2018, you could have had unexpected moves. You could have had unusual living situations, sudden changes in living situations, breakthroughs in family matters, disruptions in family matters. Maybe choosing a different path when it comes to family matters, maybe how you raise your kids, you're doing it a little bit differently. Maybe you have an unusual arrangement or whatever the case may be, Aquarius. Uranus is your ruling planet after all. And when Uranus is camped out at the anaretic degree, so from the 5th to the 25th to be specific, your ruling planet is at the final degree of a sign. So you're wrapping something up when it comes to your home, your family, Aquarius. I think a lot of you could have big events happening this month with siblings in particular, but also cousins, aunts and uncles. There could be big changes happening there. And with Uranus here in the 4th, this could be a now or never when it comes to your home or family matter, a need to change things, and you're probably wanting to do them your way. I will say the really nice thing about this, Aquarius, is that Venus is here. So if you're looking to shift your home's energy in terms of decor or doing something different, Venus, especially domicile in Taurus, tends to bring really good results. It also tends to bring more social events with family, socializing with family, maybe traveling with family under that full moon. Family vacations, family get-togethers, family parties can come up in April as well. And Uranus will then move into your fifth house. And this is quite an exciting energy when Uranus enters Gemini for you. Think back to July last year until November. Was there something different when it comes to children, or when it comes to what you do for fun, or even when it comes to your love life, Aquarius? Maybe you met somebody new romantically who was quite different, who was quite unusual, but different to your usual type. Maybe you were trying something new when it came to dating. Maybe there were sudden unexpected attractions to other people. If not, this can be part of your 7-year transit that you're going into. So this can be falling in love unexpectedly with someone different to your usual type in some way, or just in an unusual circumstance. Quite an exciting one if you're single, especially because it's in a trine to your first house, especially if you're an early degree Aquarius, falling in love unexpectedly. For some of you, it can be unexpected pregnancies, which can be a positive surprise because of that link to the first. For others of you, it can be positive events with your children. Maybe things are going well in their life and they're doing something different and exciting and new. In fact, do you know what I think this might be for you, Aquarius rising, if you have children, especially if you have young children? I think over the next 7 years, it's going to amaze you what their life is like based on how much things change. And maybe you see them doing things that were not available to you in an exciting way, opportunities or lifestyles, things that really make you exciting. For some of you, it can be about becoming a grandparent as well, if that is something that applies to you. But also keep an open mind, Aquarius. You usually do, but keep an open mind when it comes to what you do for fun and the types of things that make you happy. It can change in an instant. You can have new experiences that maybe open your mind to different routes of personal happiness. Sometimes we don't know what makes us happy until we discover it. That's something that's very possible with Uranus going through the fifth. That is what I have for you for April. I hope you have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi, Pisces. Welcome to your horoscope for April 2026. Pisces, we have a lot of planetary activity in Aries this month. And that means that our Aries houses are getting a real cosmic spotlight shone on them. Now, for you, that is the second house. This is your income, your money situation, the money that you're making, what you're spending your money on. And it's also the second house of values, what you have that is valuable, your possessions. And also in modern astrology, it can be linked sometimes to self-worth. So we have a lot of activity happening here in the second house, amplifying those themes. Now we have long-term influences like Neptune. Neptune is your ruling planet. And we also have Saturn, quite different energies. Obviously, you had them both in your sign for a number of years there. You've been working with these energies, and now they're occupying a new sector, which brings a shift. It brings a shift maybe in how you make money, how you spend money, your relationship to money, and also your relationship to the material world. So we have a Mars-Neptune conjunction happening on the 13th of the month, Neptune being your modern ruler. This can really heighten your intuition when it comes to making money. So there might be something new, Pisces, that you could do to make money. There might be a new product that you are selling. There might be a new venture that you're moving into. Just be mindful sometimes with Neptune, as you know, it can be confusing. Sometimes it can bring scams. So be very careful this month when it comes to money generally, what you're investing your money in, who you're giving money to, because Neptune can sometimes bring a scam or a negative financial influence that's confusing. Be also mindful of what you're buying into, because sometimes this can be where you're being sold a dream or a fantasy, and then you receive the item, the product, and life isn't quite what you thought it was going to be. With that, it can be about being sold an illusion or a fantasy. So just be mindful of that. I would say lean into creative ideas that you might have for making money, because you can actually have some really wonderful ones that allow you to be more creative, Pisces. Mars meets Saturn, and these are the two malefics, so this isn't necessarily pleasant, but Mars is domicile. Mars is going to be in Aries from the 9th, by the way. This can bring a bit of frustration when it comes to money, maybe feeling like you're up against a wall with something financially. There might be a bill or something you have to spend money on that frustrates you or annoys you. This could also be a day where maybe you notice your confidence is a little bit lower, maybe financially, or you just feel frustrated with the financial situation at hand. But it can also be really positive, Pisces, for long-term investments. Mars going through the second house can be a time where you feel more driven to make money, you take action, you take initiative, but it can also ramp up your spending. Saturn here is about tempering that and recognizing that this is a month of long-term investments, being mindful of long-term investments, being mindful that if you put a large sum of money onto something, it's going to be a longer term process. So maybe some of you are putting money into a home or you're setting up a savings account or something like that. Um, you may need to be more patient with your money this month rather than amping up the spending as you might like to with Mars. The way that this could be, Pisces, is that Mars could go into your second house in the 9th, and for the first 10 days, you're just thinking, spend, spend, spend. I see these things that I like. I see these things that I like. And then you realize how much you actually have spent and you think this is not sustainable with Saturn being there. So financial discipline would be wise this month, Pisces, really leaning into ideas and creativity in terms of maybe making more money and securing more financial stability for yourself, but also being mindful of the future and the long term rather than quick fixes when it comes to money. The new moon is in that sector on the 17th as well. And this can be about healing your relationship to money thanks to Chiron. Some of you could be investing money into your health and well-being, but others of you might just be setting new intentions for yourself financially. You might be setting a savings goal. You might be purchasing something new and important. I feel like with Mars and Saturn, it could be something long term. So wanting to invest your money into something for the long term. By opposition, on the 1st or the 2nd of April, depending on where you are in the world, we have a full moon in your 8th house, and this is highlighting your financial sector when it comes to other people's money. So for some of you, this is highlighting a mortgage, your taxes, it's highlighting inheritance, it's highlighting the resources that you receive from other people, and they can be financial, they can also be emotional. This can also be a house that is quite secretive and taboo. So maybe there is something about this time that is pulling your attention inward and you're reflecting on what it is that you want to change and transform privately, perhaps. But I do think this is highlighting your financial resources. And maybe for some of you, this is about going for a mortgage, or this could even bring a tax rebate or matters about taxes to the fore. For a lot of you, probably about a car with Venus in the 3rd house or linked to cousins, siblings, neighbors, maybe. The 8th house can sometimes be a crisis, so it could be a crisis pertaining to these matters. But I think for most of you, this could be about financial situations pertaining to a car. So car insurance, changing cars, buying a car, selling a car, or something of that nature, highlighting those themes. Because Venus is in the 3rd for most of the month. Venus is in your 3rd house up until the 25th. 24th rather. And this can really bless this area. So you can be getting on better with your neighbors. There can be social activities happening in your neighborhood, socializing with your siblings, getting on better with your siblings. This can be that if you're buying a car, you get quite a nice one with Venus going through this sector, Pisces. This can be about, for some of you, what would be the term, souping up your car. With Venus going through the 3rd house, this can also be about enjoying school, enjoying taking classes, enjoying learning more with Venus. Now, what's interesting about the 3rd house, Pisces, is that it is the final hurrah of Uranus in Pisces from the 5th to the 25th. Uranus is going to be at the final degree of Taurus, which can bring unexpected surprises and events to your 3rd house. So I think of it this way, you might get very unexpected messages, phone calls, emails. There can be unexpected events with a car, with a vehicle. You can do last minute trips. There can be last minute changes to trips that you're taking. There can be unexpected events with siblings and unexpected events with neighbors as well. And then Uranus on the 25th moves into Gemini. So Pisces, if you haven't moved in a while, over the next 7 years, you're probably going to move. You don't have to do this in April, but you might move more than once. Usually when Uranus goes through the fourth house, people move unexpectedly. And for you, this could be something that is quite surprising. You might also find that you do things a little bit differently when it comes to your home. You might drastically change your decor. You might opt for an unconventional living situation. You might opt for something that is a little bit out of the ordinary in some way, Pisces. And obviously that depends really on your own circumstances. But Uranus going through the fourth tends to disrupt this area sometimes to remove stagnancy. So if you're in a living situation that feels stuck, this could be very good news for you, Pisces. And you might also find that people in your family surprise you here and there. They could certainly be a source of entertainment at times, but they can definitely do things that come out of nowhere and shock you or surprise you pleasantly. Uranus just tends to be the element of surprise, whether it's good or not, depends on how it's acting with your chart, or how you perceive it to be good or not, depends on how it's acting with your chart. For example, if you have a lot of Sagittarius basements, this can be an opposition where you feel as though someone is frustrating you by the way that they're acting, or if it's a square, they can be frustrating you with the way that they're acting. But if it's a trine, this can be unexpected positive developments with home and family. You know what I mean? So just keep an eye on it. It's a 7 year transit. As I say, it doesn't have to be something that takes off in April, but you might certainly be feeling Pisces, especially if you had itchy feet last year from July to November. You might feel the winds of change coming into your living situation in April, especially because Venus goes into that sector on the 24th. So from the 24th to the end of April, positive times with home, family, home decor. Gemini energy tends to be a little bit more colorful. So maybe you've been doing the neutral thing, the neutral trend with home, Pisces, and now you're opting for something a little bit more colorful in your space. That is what I have for you, Pisces. I hope you have a wonderful month and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Taurus, welcome to April 2026. Taurus, we have a lot of activity happening in your 12th house this month. We have so many planets in or moving through Aries, and the 12th house is naturally rather behind the scenes. This is about hidden matters, solitude, your subconscious, it's your spiritual connection. So you might be noticing, Taurus, that you're not feeling as sociable, or you don't care to be as visible as usual with so much energy going through the 12th house. You might be wanting to spend time alone to heal, to reflect, to recharge. Sometimes when we have a pile up in the 12th house, we can feel a little bit under the weather. And you might notice in particular, Taurus, around the full moon in your sixth house on the 1st or 2nd of April, depending on where you are. Within the first week of April, maybe you are under the weather or feeling a bit ill, or you need some time to rest, or your energy is just low and lethargic. That could be something that is happening for you, Taurus, with this buildup of energy. It can be a little bit of a cosmic purge with so much in the 12th house. Now, Mars is going into this sector. Mars loves this sector. Mars is domicile in Aries, and Mars is moving through Aries from the 9th. And when it's going through the 12th house, you might just feel a little bit like you want to work on something. You're brave enough to work on a matter that is healing, or requiring you to look at something that is difficult, or requiring you to look at the past. For some of you, you might be more interested in your spiritual side, and you might feel called to go on a spiritual retreat, or meditate more, or go to a workshop, or connect with your spiritual side, connect with the universe, connect with something that is intangible. You might have heightened intuition that you want to act on. You could definitely be having dreams that are very profound and are telling you things, Taurus. I will also say, be mindful this month that you may become aware of a hidden enemy if you have them. And that hidden enemy can be another person, but it can also be a self-sabotaging behavior or belief or a vice that you possess. So just be mindful of that, Taurus. There can be something with this energy that reveals something behind the scenes that is difficult or is energetically draining or depleting you, but it can also up your intuition. So you'll probably know what this is in April if it applies to you. Now, difficulty arises with the 19th. Mars and Saturn get into their conjunction. And I feel like for a lot of you, you may be feeling called to work through some kind of ending or some kind of grief or some kind of pattern with your subconscious. You'll find out this month for sure, Taurus, how you're holding yourself back in your life, something that is preventing you from moving forward, something that is preventing you from building better mental health, perhaps something that is preventing you from resting and recharging, or your relationship to resting is maybe a little bit off and needs to be rebuilt. I think with Saturn going through the 12th, you have to set spiritual boundaries for yourself energetically. So that can be where maybe you're taking in too much of the world's problems on a regular basis. And you have to say, okay, I need time to recharge. I need to say no to some of this. Perhaps it's that you need better rest and you have people disturbing you all the time, and you have to set a boundary and say, actually, I need some time to sleep. I need some time to rest. That can come up with Saturn. Saturn going through the 12th is notorious for having to spend some time alone. And this can be voluntary or involuntary. You know, sometimes with Saturn going through the 12th, it can put you in periods of social isolation for whatever reason. It can be chosen, but it can also just be to do with circumstances. You could find yourself, say you traveled, maybe you find yourself stuck somewhere for a day or two by yourself. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, Taurus, but it can be a time to work on your relationship to solitude and how good you feel by yourself or not. Saturn can also be a time where you notice old patterns. It's a great transit for therapy. It's a great transit through working through patterns with a therapist because you can really uncover a lot, especially with the new moon that's happening on the 17th in Aries. You can't see it here on my screen right now, but there's a new moon on the 17th before the moon passes into your sign. And it's going to be a reset for you when it comes to mental health, when it comes to your spiritual connection. And it's conjunct Chiron. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you did start seeing a therapist, or you began a period of healing, of greater spiritual and emotional well-being, Taurus. That could certainly be something that is applying to quite a lot of you, or you could be starting something behind the scenes, but a lot of focus on the 12th. So it might not really be the month where we see too much of you, Taurus, but when we do see you, you will be looking lovely. We have Venus going through your sign until the 24th. Venus is domicile in your sign, so you'll be attracting a lot of compliments on your hair, your makeup, your style, your appearance, your personality. You will be a magnet for compliments, Taurus, and you'll also be a magnet for affection and gifts and material resources as well. Now, Uranus is going to be at the final degree of your sign, and this is a big deal. So, Uranus is going to be at 29 of Taurus from the 5th of April to the 25th of April before changing signs. And you will not have to deal with Uranus in your sign for another 84 years, if that applies to you. But this energy is sort of wrapping up. And Uranus is about breakthroughs, innovation. So you could be having a personal breakthrough, Taurus, maybe with style, maybe with appearance, aesthetic, personality, your personal wishes and desires. Maybe you're having a breakthrough in what you want or with your style. Maybe you're having a now or never moment where you think, if I don't dye my hair pink now, I never will. That could be something that's happening for you. So you could be shocking everyone this month for sure because it's in your first. So you could be shocking other people, Taurus. You could be surprising them with what you do and how you style yourself and what you're at generally. You could be the one with shock value. But it can also be that there's something unexpected maybe comes up with health or well-being that you have to tend to, something with your physical body. But I do feel with Venus there, you have a lot of support from the cosmos to your health and well-being. So hopefully nothing too crazy with Uranus there. Now, Uranus moves into Gemini, your second house. And when Uranus moves into Gemini on the 25th, this doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to change overnight. Uranus is a 7-year transit. Uranus through each house is a 7-year transit. And Uranus goes through the second house in order to revolutionize your relationship with money and the material. So sometimes Uranus goes through the second house and you find that there are unusual circumstances surrounding your spending or your money or the way that you make money. This can be changes in incomes, how you make money, changes in how you make money. I remember Uranus going through my second house coincided with me starting my YouTube channel, and then I was suddenly making money through the internet that I didn't ever really think was possible before at that time. I know it's quite normal to make money through the internet at the time at now, but it wasn't at the time. And I ended up building an online business. So making money through ways that you don't necessarily expect, Taurus, is a theme of Uranus going through the second. And that can also bring disruptions to your finances, changes in jobs, changes in what you spend your money on, changes in bills. Sometimes it can bring a bit of financial freedom or liberation as a best case scenario. And sometimes it can also be about detaching from the material altogether. You might not be so motivated by money, or you might want to go minimalist and not have as much stuff. But there can certainly be financial changes happening for you, Taurus, over the next 7 years. And I think as a Taurus rising, that could certainly freak some of you out because you're motivated by stability in a lot of cases. But with Uranus having gone through your sign, trust me, that is the most unstable it will probably be. Uranus going through the first house, it can really shake up your life in very unusual and unexpected ways, Taurus. So, Uranus going through the second house, you can be innovative and you can actually find it improves your financial situation if you remain open-minded, because Uranus tends to bring you your best ideas. It is the planet of genius. So, when it goes through the second, it can really help you with your financial situation if you let it. That is what I have for you, Taurus, and I will talk to you soon.